A bright light shining like the end of a tunnel, an experience, something which happens to people who are near death. And our MC wondering, how did he reach here, how did he die? Since last time he remembered, he was alone in his room, while looking over a futuristic city from above. And afterwards, his body started to feel heavy as he laid down on his bed, wondering if he was poisoned or assassinated, since there were many who wanted him dead. Since, after all, he was a king. While he would like to figure out his death, but having no choice, he at least hopes to have a choir of babies with wings singing at his demise. Though suddenly, the light starts to shine, and a blurry vision appears, and we hear the words, "Congratulations, sir, madam, you have a healthy baby boy." Wondering if he was given birth to, and we see a blur vision of his parents, though with that he realize that the light coming from the end of the tunnel was actually a woman. His parent starts to speak about his features, being beautiful and his hair color matching to that of his mother. And we finally get a proper look at his parents, while our MC notes that he can understand their language, a good sign. Noting his mother, with a bright, gentle smile, and her charming beauty, with his mother claiming his eyes to be just like his father. And with a strong jaw, fiercely sharp brows, and a strict and serious personality, he notes about his father. At first, he notes that his surrounding feels normal, though after careful observation, he notices they look huge. And after we get a proper look onto our baby MC, and he wonders, just where is he? And like that, few weeks slowly passed by. His mother, Alice, was a gentle and kind-hearted person who held the reins of the family tightly, and his father, Reynolds, a dependable and charismatic person, though with his occasional childishness. While he was born in a loving family, he was finding it tough to command his little hands, and the inability to control his bodily functions. Though with his years of mental fortitude honed as a king, and his faint hope that this was just a dream, these were the only things keeping him sane. He notes that he has been transported to a past world, in a much more archaic period. Noting the people, he wonders if they usually used to carry around weapons in the past. He hears some people selling elixirs, which he refers to as suspicious, being passed off as medicine. His mom, wondering if he is tired, decides to take him back home. At home, after assessing everything, he becomes confident in his now knowledge about this world and what to expect from it. His dad picks him up and throws him up in the air, with her mom getting scared of his antics. And him getting scared as well, and being ashamed of himself from being reduced to such state by a mere toss. Once again his dad recalls about his dad doing the same to him. He picks our boy up and swings him around in a circle. His mom gets concerned over it, and our MC is on the verge of throwing up. And in the middle of playing, his knee collides with a wall. He starts to cry, while Alice is pissed on Reynolds for his antics. She hits up and times him out in the corner, while she consoles our boy. Now a green light starts to shine in her hands, with her saying she will fix him up and puts her hand over his knees. We see his injury getting completely healed, as she lifts him up again in excitement. While our MC notes that he spoke too soon, and perhaps he does not know anything of this world after all. In his previous life, he used to be a king. He led armies, and outdueled countless people from all over the world. But right now for him, he has never been proud of something more, the fact that he learned to crawl. As both his parents are watching over him so he does not get hurt anywhere while crawling. He reaches and looks at himself in the mirror, while excited about it. Though it has been some time, he is still not used to new name. The name Art is too cute for a former king like him. Though looking at himself he smirks, calling himself adorable. And to watch out for future ladies, and prepare to be heartbroken. Now as he sleeps, his mom kisses his cheek and starts to leave. But he is actually awake with a mission at that. He throws out the blanket on the floor, and climbs out of his cradle, and jumps onto the blanket. Noting that he has 1 hour till Alice comes back to check up on him. He crawls from the open door behind Alice, without her noticing, and reaches the study room with lots of books, and a proud feeling of accomplishing his mission. He starts to look over the books to read. Though he has been sneaking in this place before every night to learn more about this world, Dicathan, the continent that he had been born in, is comprised of 3 major kingdoms. Eleanor, the elven kingdom deep in the forest. Darv, the vast underground kingdom and home of the dwarfs. Sapin, the human kingdom and easily the most populated region. And both this and his previous world has same monarch system, though here it is passed down rather than earned. And he also found out that this world is vastly underdeveloped compared to his old one. But there is a reason for the lack of technological advancement. And that reason would be magic. He opens up the book to read its content. Continuing from where he left off, in his old world, they had chi used by practitioners to strengthen their bodies. This world has something similar, mana, though unlike chi which exits only inside a person, mana is present all around. The power to control mana is largely genetic, roughly 1 in 100 children possess it. And it can be used in various ways. The most common methods are augmenting and conjuring. Augmenters enhance their bodies with mana, allowing them to possess incredible defense, strength, and agility. However, their weakness is their limited range. Conjurers, on the other hand, emits mana to the outside world, allowing them to bend their surrounding to their will. For that they must supplement their own mana core with mana from outside the world to form a spell. His mother was what they call a deviant, specifically, an emitter. A rare and unique type of mage, able to cast restorative mana. Though according to the book, the first awakenings happen between adolescence to early teenage years, when their mana cores manifest, similar to chi center in his previous life. To form a chi center, children were taught to meditate and sense the fragments of chi scattered inside their bodies and gather them into a single place. He then tries to do the same for his mana core. As he closes his eyes and focus, a light orb is seen inside his body. Noting that it's working, but he suddenly gets picked up. And it's his mom, who came to pick him up. Though she notes and asks if he has trouble pooping. Though he is annoyed as his mother is making him out to be a constipated infant, while he is on his journey to become a mage. Noting the diaper, she realizes that it's not the case though. As it turns out, in the midst of his concentration, he has indeed soiled his diaper. Now we switch POV to his mom. As she starts to write down in her diary. Though it has been over 2 years now, she still learns new thing about her baby with each passing day. And with all that, she reached a conclusion. That Arthur is the most adorable baby ever for her. With his auburn hair, and azure eyes that look intelligent, she knows that he will get into trouble if she does not become a strict mother. Not to mention that she cannot rely on her husband, as she freaks out seeing him teach Arthur on how to wield a sword at his age. And she goes on to him, looking at both of them with a scary expression for his antics. And she writes all about this in her diary while giving off a warm smile. At the market, she observes that Arthur loves going to the small merchant strip in central Ashba. So rather than shopping for groceries, they go downtown every day. And even with all that, she denies that she is spoiling him. With the reasoning that it's just to have fresh food in-house and educational purposes, while she wonders looking at him, on how will he be when he gets older. And with Ray as his father, she is sure that he will have an interest in becoming an adventurer. But she worries and hopes that he is better than the naive young teens hoping to make it as adventurers, and the problem of him sneaking into study room as always. Due to which, she is tempted to move his crib into study, but not for now. And with that, she closes her diary for the time being and leaves. Now we see Arthur looking at his father from out of the window. And around 2 years has passed since he first made his journey into the study room. And he has learned a lot of things since then, and it's been quite fascinating for him. And he observes over his father chanting for magic. Noting that he has been chanting hard for few minutes and concentrating really hard. The stone starts to get lifted up a bit. While Arthur is excited to see what his chanting will conjure. And he is shocked to see so many stones flying up in the air. His father then throws the stones a few feet away with a loud scream, leaving Arthur speechless at his show-off. Though his father looks at him with a confident grin as if he did something worthy enough for his son to witness. On the other hand, Arthur is disappointed by the fact he could just fling the stone physically with even less effort. His mother comes along, patting his head, asking if he is watching his daddy, though she notes that he has again ruined the front yard again. And Arthur does know that his father is an augmenter, and while he wonders himself on what will he turn out to be, now his father has changed his stance to something more akin to a warrior. And we see him start to practice martial arts with punching, kicking. Arthur smiles looking at him, and starts to leave. Though he suddenly is overtaken by a fear of heights as he is standing on top of the bench. He starts to tremble, and slowly tries to reach down. While his mother notices his half-closed eyes. She takes it as that he is sleepy and picks Arthur up, taking him away. But Arthur tries to go for the books, but his mother tells him to do that later. Realizing that she is not going to budge, he decides to use that method. He uses his adorable eyes and face and requests his mom with his sparkling face. And his mother is indeed getting overtaken by his cuteness. She pushes him away quickly, and she agrees, although a bit reluctantly. She leaves, justifying her actions, that she is not a doting mother, but the boy his age simply needs to play a lot, while Arthur calls that a great warrior must utilize everything in his arsenal. His mom watches over him diligently studying the books. Suddenly she hears a crashing sound and notes that his father has perhaps once again knocked down a tree and leaves to check. While for Arthur as of now his biggest accomplishment in this world is his progress in forming his mana core. And he once again start to work on his mana core. And that he spent the last 2 years moving the 10 of thousands of tiny fragments of mana inside his body, and gathering them together near his solar plexus, making him realize why it takes up to adolescence to form naturally. Though it's an arduous task for both his mind and body. But his 2 years have not gone to waste, since he is almost there. Outside, we see his dad is picking the tree back up as his mom is watching. And for Arthur, just one last piece remains to form his mana core. And suddenly a huge explosion happens right behind his mother. But Reynolds immediately reacts and is able to cover Alice from the explosion. After saving Alice from the explosion, he asks her if she is okay, but she mentions Arthur. And her eyes widens, as she suddenly realizes that Arthur is still in there. Hearing that, Reynolds also comes to realization. And with that, he quickly rushes inside to save him. As he clears out the rubble, he is shocked upon seeing something. His face turns pale, and he is left speechless. He falls on the ground, on his knees and chuckles. Alice comes along and asks him, "What's wrong?" and Reynolds is in utter shock. Alice notices it as well, and Reynolds comments that he is not even 3. And we see Arthur is floating in the air, with his mana core formed. While Arthur comes down, feeling quite great about it. Getting excited after feeling his mana core, and noting the trees as well. Though with the trees, he is suddenly hit with a realization, as he wonders if they were attacked or something. Now fast forward, aside from rebuilding their house, a lot of things have happened in the past year. With his mother teaching him how to read and write. And he has been learning the basic of mana manipulation and augmentation. And since his body is too small for sparring, they started basic workouts. Not too long after, his father decided that it would be okay to practice with the wooden sword he got him as a birthday present. As Arthur is studying in his room quietly, suddenly his father barges in, asking him to train with a sword. He starts to teach him to match the flow of mana with his breathing. As he is start to explaining, Arthur wonders if even most for years would understand such instructions. Now both of them get into stance to start sparring. Now their sword clashes, but Reynolds is able to block it quite easily. Reynolds tells him to try harder. And Arthur notes that he is not going to let him go until he does it. And that he won't have much time to study before dinner. His eyes is full of focus, and he starts to rush towards Reynolds. And with a downward slash, he cuts his sword in half. And Reynolds is quite surprised due to it. And Arthur asks him if he can go and study now, to which he replies, he can. Now inside his room, Arthur starts to train, and in this world, strength is measured by the color of one's mana core. The mana core starts off black, due to the body's blood and other impurities mixing with the mana particles forming the mana core. Then the core becomes more pure as the impurities are filtered out over time. And their orders goes as black, red, orange, yellow, silver, and lastly, white. And each stage is further split into 3 shades, dark, solid, and light. The lighter the core, the purer it is and the more power it has. Suddenly as he is training, he gets called out for dinner, which annoys him. As both Alice and Reynolds are eating dinner, Reynolds looks a bit troubled. While Arthur is still annoyed for not getting any alone time, since he wants to learn. At last Reynolds speaks up that it's time they get Arthur a proper mentor. Both of them start to argue with Alice saying that he is not old enough. And not to mention, Ray told her that he will teach him. To which he replies, exactly, though he never expected their son to be a mana manipulation prodigy at his age. Though he believes that he is holding their son back since he has so much potential. She argues that she is not going to send him away to a faraway city, but Reynolds tells her that Xyrus is not just any city, and he will make sure that his friends take cares of him there. Arthur on the other hand is tired, as he listens to them argue. Now both Alice and Reynolds slams their hand on the table, and look towards Arthur. With Reynolds asking him if he wants to go to a big city and have a real teacher. Arthur is speechless, while thinking if this is really something he should ask his 4-year-old son. He replies if they cannot just both come as well and meet his teacher. Hearing which their expression changes, making Arthur think if he said something wrong. But they both burst out laughing, as they did not think to just go together. Alice also comments that she would feel better when he is tested and meets his teacher. With Reynolds getting excited for all of them going to the Xyrus city, and Arthur is shocked upon learning that his parents are preparing for the 3-week journey already. Fast forward, Arthur is again reading a book, trying to find something. But Alice comes around and takes the book, telling him to go to bed, since they are heading early tomorrow. Arthur calls it too fast, and his mom replies she does not like it either, but their old friends from the Twin Horns are going to Xyrus as well, so they will take them along. She starts to leave, telling him to not read books again for tonight and he can take some with him tomorrow, as they both tell each other good night. Arthur knew that Twin Horns were in the area, since they even helped them rebuild their home when they had time. And from what he learned, their party consists of 2 conjurers and 3 awakeners, which would help with any trouble along the way. And finally he is moving on from the small town, to see what the world has to offer. Next day, we see their whole family walking to meet the Twin Horns. Reynolds hugs his friend and thanks him. And introduces Arthur to everyone, though he tells him to introduce himself. He bows, introducing himself as Arthur Lei Win, and thanks them for coming with them to Xyrus. One of the red-haired guy pats him on his head for his manners, asking Ray if he is really his kid, and the guy is introduced as Adam Crench, augmenter, with specialty being spear. Suddenly he gets picked up by someone. And it's some blonde girl, who calls Arthur to be adorable, and to be thankful that he looks like his mom, and she is introduced as Angela Rose, conjurer, specialty, wind magic. Arthur, pressed against her bazookas, is unable to breathe and someone takes him from her on the pretext of her hurting him. The guy is introduced as Duran Walker, conjurer, specialty, earth magic. Arthur smiles looking at him, as he reminds him of a gentle old dog. And suddenly he looks over and notices someone. A girl dressed in complete black, Jasmine Flamesworth, augmenter, specialty, dual daggers. Though she just nods at him and leaves. But someone comes along and tells Arthur to not mind about her. She shakes his hand, and is introduced as Helen Shard, augmenter, specialty, magic archery. Now Reynolds tells everyone to prepare to move on. And he asks if everyone is ready, with them replying they are all good. With this, they all finally depart for their journey. As Arthur looks out from the carriage, saying, "Let the journey begin." Fast forward, and it gets late evening. With the Twin Horns and Reynolds taking care of the attacking monsters. They bring back their bodies to cook and eat. We see Arthur is looking a bit down, prompting Helen to ask him if he is feeling tired. Which he is, and she tells him to not worry, since it's his first time traveling, though Arthur thinks, in this life it is. She asks him about how his dad was saying that he is a genius who awakened a year ago. And we see Adam is listening on their conversation. Due to which he asks Reynolds that he needs to stretch out a bit, and since he has been sparring with his boy, could he also play with him for a bit? The suggestion is not taken in a good light by Arthur. Reynolds agrees, but tells Adam to go light, since they only moved on from light strength and mana exercises to sparring recently. Adam grabs Arthur and takes him with himself, as Arthur is thinking, kids his age are barely able to climb stairs, but here they are taking fighting with me normal. As they both stand facing off, Adam asks him if he is ready. Arthur simply swings his sword around to stretch out. Adam gets ready, and asks if he does know how to reinforce a weapon as a genius. As a vision of Tiger appears behind Adam, signifying his intent. Arthur, nervous, signals his dad that Adam is out for blood. But Reynolds does not understand, and tells him to go get him. Realizing there is no point, Arthur steels himself for the fight. He readies his stance, as the king he was in his previous life. And with circulating mana, he dashes. We see Adam smiling, noticing Arthur's attack, he puts up his spear to defend. And just as Arthur's sword is about to reach his spear, Adam swings his spear back and throws Arthur away. Though Arthur notes it's due to his infantile body, and he rushes to attack him again. Adam looks back at him and smiles. Arthur channels mana onto his sword to attack. He does a sideways slash onto Adam, but misses, and Adam counters by swinging his spear, which Arthur dodges by ducking down. He then uses his body and crashes onto Adam to throw him off balance. As Adam falls, Arthur jumps up to attack him. But Adam sends a kick towards him, but Arthur is able to dodge that in midair. As Arthur is on the ground from getting off balance, Adam hits him with his spear, which he blocks. As due to the Newton's third law of motion, they both get pushed back with respective amount of force. Though Arthur is completely flung to being a kid. As he crashes onto the ground, with Alice shouting his name in worry. Durden comes around and hits Adam for being too hard. with Adam calling Arthur a monster and being unable to believe that Reynold didn't teach him how to fight. But Reynold replies he didn't teach him any of that. As Alice is healing him, she asks if this is what Arthur has been studying. And he makes up that he learned it from watching Reynold and reading some books. Though they don't believe him, they ask Arthur to teach them the movement technique of his. As such, we see Arthur trying to teach them his movement techniques, although both of them end up in failure. Now fast forward and several days has passed since their journey to Zyra's city. And during this time, Arthur's birthday has also passed, as we see Jasmine gifting him a dagger. And everyone else is having a bath and having fun. Adam, Helen, and Reynolds' training also continued with decent progress. Though with Arthur's surprise, Jasmine already learned his technique, which surprised him, as she was able to grasp his technique quickly. Now it gets time to leave as everyone gets ready to continue on their journey. We see them continue on a big concrete road. As Adam tells Arthur on how his father used to get them in all sorts of trouble. And Helen jumps in, calling out Adam for doing the same as well. But he tries to change the topic quickly about it. We see Alice is not feeling well, with Arthur asking about it, and she replies that she is fine. Hearing that, Arthur goes on to start reading his book that he brought with him. And suddenly he also starts to feel something as his face gets a scared expression. And we see Jasmine is glaring at him, to teach her more techniques. But suddenly their carriage shakes. And Alice asks, what is going on? To which, Helen shouts that it's bandits and to prepare to engage. And Angela immediately starts to chant for her spell, while Alice ducks down to avoid the incoming attacks. As we see, few arrows are flying towards them. But Angela's spell creates a wind barrier around the carriage, which repels all the arrows. And everyone gets out and prepare to launch a counterattack. Helen backflips over the carriage and aims her bow. Though Arthur notes that they are completely surrounded by bandits. And the bandits are completely ready to attack with archers, and some also hiding inside the bush. Suddenly we see a bulky guy, with a large axe, praising his subordinates for doing a good job. We see it's some vanilla-ass bandit, eyeing Arthur and Alice, ordering his subordinate to not leave them with any scars, as he apparently plans to sell them off, without knowing Arthur's MC status. Confronted with the ugly bastard face, Arthur realizes that he is not in a Disney world, and there is filth in this world as well. And hearing the word, damaged goods, scares him. Arthur grips his dagger tightly with a serious face. His mother notes and she hugs him tightly, telling him to not worry, since she is here, which calms him down. As one of the bandits shoots the arrow, Reynold and Durden rushes forward to defend. And with his spell, Durden creates a earth wall to protect everyone. But Arrow still gets over it, and heads right towards Alice and Arthur. But Angela comes forward and deflects them with her wind magic. Now their leader and two of his henchmen come sliding down to attack. Helen attacks them with her arrows, which they are able to parry quite easily. And Reynold jumps over and attacks one of the bandit after slamming down on him. And immediately rushes and takes down multiple of them at once. As one of them is attacking him from behind, an arrow comes and pierces right through him. And both Helen and Reynolds nods at each other. At the carriage we see Jasmine and Adam are taking care of them enemies getting close to it. A huge guy comes and attacks Adam, but he dodges. And immediately counterattacks right on his face. And Jasmine is also using her agility to take care of multiple bandits. Suddenly she notes one of the guy is charging his attack with whip. He attacks her with it, but she dodges and he instead ends up cutting his own teammate's leg. He harasses her by telling her to stop struggling like this, since by the end she will like it so much that she will beg to stay with him. As he attacks her again, she dodges it all incredibly fast, creating after images. Though she still get few scratches here and there. And Arthur observes that she is at a disadvantage against her opponent's range, and wonders if he should help her, though he doubts he could do anything against an opponent using augment with his current body. Suddenly someone crashes into their carriage. And we see it's Reynold, who is lying there with blood coming from his mouth. As Alice shouts his name in worry. Though Arthur is looking quite serious, as he stands face to face against their leader. Arthur tells her mother to heal his dad. But he notices that something is wrong with her, as he wonders why isn't she healing his father. But just then she starts to heal him, as Reynolds claims that his injuries are not life-threatening. And he tells Arthur that after his mother uses her healing spell, the bandits will go after her, he will fend off the leader, but he won't be able to protect them then, hence, he should head down the trail they came from and don't stop. But Arthur claims that he cannot leave him alone and wants to fight with him together. But his dad simply smiles and pats him on his head. and tells him that he knows he can fight. That is why he is entrusting his mother to him, and to protect both her and the baby inside of her. Arthur remembers her mother's actions from back then, realizing that it was all due to she was pregnant. His dad was planning on telling him when they reached Xyrus. Now hearing that, Arthur tells his dad that he will protect his mom. As she is healing Reynolds, Arthur gets ready. The ugly bastard notices they got a healer and tells his henchman to get her. Just as she finishes the healing, Arthur drags his mom away, while looking at Dad and wishing him to not die. We see Adam is leading them to safety, but her suddenly notices something. A guy is coming right behind them to attack, and such Adam goes on to intercept him. He tells them that he will hold him here and to get out of here till then. But as they are running, an arrow is aimed towards them. Arthur notices the arrow coming from behind him, but he is able to block it using his wooden sword. But his sword breaks due to the sheer force of the arrow. The bandit is surprised at him to be able to block the arrow. And suddenly Helen takes out that bandit with an arrow right through his face, telling Arthur to not stop. Arthur keeps on running, but thinks that something is wrong. He remembers that there should be 4 mages. He counts them. One is fighting Jasmine and Angela, another one is fighting Adam. Third one is fighting Reynolds and Helen, but he does not see the 4th one. As suddenly their leader shouts at Damien to not forget the plan and to not let them live. And Arthur wonders just who is he talking to? Suddenly a lot of water starts to gather at one point, and Arthur realizes. We see it's the 4th mage, on top of the cliff, preparing to attack them. And just like that, he sends the huge water orb right towards Alice and Arthur. Arthur notices that even if he is able to dodge it using mana, his mom would not be able to. As such he suddenly stops and turns around, and pushes her mom away, while apologizing for the bruises she will get. And Arthur knew if he could not make it, he wanted to bring the mage down with him, as he pulls out his dagger. And he throws the dagger right towards the bandit mage. Though he does get hit by the huge water orb, and the mage is hit by his dagger right on his leg. And we see he has also attached a mana string to it, which he pulls, and hopes that it sticks. And he falls but hangs on the edge of the cliff, holding on to the mana string. As the mage is unable to hold on and loses his grip when the stone cracks. We see both him and Arthur are falling off the cliff. But Durden comes along and uses his spell and creates a huge earth hand, with which he tries to grab them. Though Arthur has already accepted his fate, while thinking that everyone would be okay now. Though he get teary thinking that he always wanted to be an older brother. We see a flashback of a throne room, and a guy getting up from his bed. And as he opens his door, his maid is surprised to see him. It's King Grey, and all of his servants greets him. He walks down the hallway, into another room with 2 of his servants following him. He arrives in some kind of office, where an old guy is sitting and is a bit confused upon seeing him. Though Grey just looks at the pictures, the council who are responsible for governing the country and managing its politics and economy. And in a world where resources are limited, birth rates are declining, wars were replaced by duels and armies by kings, and he was one of them. The old guy gets up, noting that King Grey is admiring his handiwork, and that he is quite envious of the flame and glory they receive upon victories. And asks Grey about his reason for his unexpected visit. Grey reaches for his medal and pulls it out, and puts it in front of him, right on the table, and simply leaves saying that he is retiring, which shocks Marlon, as he tells him to hold on. Grey thinks about his life he spent for the sake of being the strongest, as he questions if it was for fame or glory, but despite all that, everyone he cherished was gone, and that he would give up everything he had in that life for the chance to go back to Ashba and see them all again. Now in a forest, it gets evening, and Arthur wonders, where is he? He thinks, how is he still alive, and sees his items all out of his reach. As he looks to his side, he notices the body of that bandit as well, which makes him vomit. We see him incredibly tired as his eyes closes again, but a leaf falls on his mouth, sniffing it, makes him conscious again. He looks over to this food and tries to reach for it. He finally gets hold of the water and berries he had, and after consuming, he once again falls asleep, thanking for the meal. Now it gets morning and he again tries to get up, but he has no strength left and again falls back. He sighs and focuses to do mana circulation inside his body, and is finally able to get up after all the trouble. He notices the dagger stuck on the bandit and pulls it out, and gets a view of the cliff, surprised that he survived such a fall. He wonders how long has it been, and where is he? Though for him it does not matter, since he need to move on. Suddenly he hears a voice, asking him if he is awake, which surprises him. And Arthur gets scared and hides behind a tree. He wonders if it's that body that is speaking, and again, he hears a voice, asking how is his body. He gets close to it, hoping that it does not wake up, though the voice tells him to not worry, since the corpse won't be animating, since he is afraid of it. He gives off a sigh of relief, but realizes that he should not trust this voice, no matter how dignified and smooth it sounds. He notices someone and points his dagger at that direction, asking their identity and if they are the one who saved him. Though it turns out to be a little rabbit. The voice answers yes for the second question and for the first one, they tell him that he would know once he arrives at their dwelling. Though Arthur replies, he seems confident that he would even try to find him. But the voice tells him that he is the only one who would be able to get him home from this place. He remembers about his family and the twin horns and about his baby sibling. Wondering if they are safe, and if they have reached Cyrus safely? Though a bit embarrassed, he quickly switches his tone to something much polite, asking him for the direction that he is in. And the voice starts to chuckle upon hearing it. And tells Arthur that he is quick to catch on, though it is a bit rude to refer to a lady as Mr., but she gets his sentiment. Though Arthur is surprised and wonders how does she know his name. Suddenly Arthur's eye starts glowing red, as she tells him that she will show him the way. He kneels in pain, and sees the vision of the path with an aerial view. And the voice recommends him to travel quickly, since it's safer when the lights are out. As Arthur's body condition improved, leaving with only few scratches, he starts to wonder about some things. What sort of magic did she use to save him? How would she know that they were falling, and why did she only save him? And with each question he started to get more confused. Suddenly he hears a sound, and hopes that it is what he thinks it is. Climbing up the rock, he finally finds water, and jumps right into it. He splashes into it, and cleans up his clothes. And the voice chuckles, calling him carefree, which gets him embarrassed. While he is hiding his snake, the voice tells him to not worry, since there is not much to see anyways. He gets dressed up, depressed from her words about his small snake. Though the voice also apologizes for startling him. Arthur notes since he fell of the mountain towards the east, he must be near the elves' domain. But he does not see any of the fog that the forest of Elshire is known for. And his fear of traveling through the beast glades were gone due to the fact that only small animals seem to be present. Though he is surprised that he has not seen any mana beast, despite this place being mana rich, and he finds it unfortunate that he cannot absorb mana since he is in a hurry. Since he needs to get back to his parents, because the stress of his death could potentially endanger the baby. If they are alive, that is. Now it gets almost night, and the voice is glad that he was able to make it this far safely. He greets the stone, thinking it's where the voice was coming from. But the voice tells him, though it would be interesting if she was a pile of sentient rocks, he would actually find her inside the crevice. We see Arthur is a bit nervous in going inside. But he is determined as he states to his mom and dad that he is going to come home. Inside the cave, the voice tells him to watch his step as he steps on a rock and falls. As he is falling inside, we see some bright blue glowing light. And he crashes right on the ground from a hole. He gets up thinking that a warning would have been nice if he was going to fall 2 stories below. He gets up and dusts off his clothes, and suddenly notices something. Seeing which he falls on his feet. And his face is overcome with an expression of fear. As we see a human-looking creature, clad in complete black armor and red glowing face. As she tells him that finally they have met. She starts to walk towards him, and he gets really scared. As her hand starts to reach for him, she tells him to close his mouth otherwise some flies will get in. He does closes his mouth and notices her wound. Looking at her, Arthur takes her hand, as she informs him that it would take her some time to open a dimensional rift to send him home. And she tells him to eat the special fruits that grow here, they will nourish him until then. And Arthur thanks her for it. He goes on to look for a fruit to eat, and picks a glowing purple one. Looking at the bright fruit, he is reminded of his family. But he shakes of the thought. She sneaks up behind him, recommending a fruit, which scares Arthur, causing him to crush the fruit he was holding. Now we see them both sitting together and eating fruit. Arthur, a bit hesitant, tries to ask some questions. He asks her on how can he address her, as he only knows that she is a lady, and she replies with her name, Sylvia. He asks if he could ask her some questions, to which she replies, sure, though she might not be able to answer everything. Now with his fear of Sylvia gone, he asks her few questions. Where was this place? Why is she alone? Where did she come from? How did she got that wound? And why did she save him? She begins to answer, for the first one, This place is a narrow zone that rests between the Beast Glades and the Forest of Elshire. No one knows of this place, and she has been warding off anyone that came here, although those cases are rare, though Arthur is the first one to enter. Arthur tells her that she can call him Art, as that is what his family calls him. To which she complies, and as for his second question, she is here alone, because she does not have anyone left to be with. As she have many enemies who desperately wishes for something she have. And as for her wound, she got it from the last battle against her enemies, before she escaped. And as for why she saved him, that she does not know herself, perhaps she was moved by his courage and sacrifice, or maybe she was just lonely, she does not understand fully either. She apologizes and leaves, as she needs to fester her wound because she has to be in a good condition to work on the dimensional rift. And Arthur tells her good night, and his eyes are filled with worry and sadness, as he could not help but notice how lonely she looked when she walked away. Sylvia suddenly turns around and informs Arthur, although her sight was unable to reach exactly where they went. But his family and friends are safe, just in case if he was not sure. Arthur gets quite relieved upon hearing that his family is safe, and tears starts rolling down his eyes. And with a happy and teary face, he wholeheartedly thanks Sylvia. Fast forward and we see Arthur and Sylvia doing many activities together, as she works on her dimensional rift. Both Sylvia and Arthur spent hours on talking, when she was not working on the rift, and those hours went to days, weeks, while they spent every moment with each other. While she did not spoke about her own life, Arthur began to slowly understand what kind of person this mysterious being was. Now we see Arthur is training and gathering mana. And seeing Saliva, he comments, she is the living embodiment of the phrase, don't judge a book by its cover. Contrary to her appearance, she was kind, gentle, patient and warm. As she comes around Arthur and gives her fruit, asking if he had dinner yet. As she reminded him of his mother, in the sense that she was kind and gentle, but firmly scolded him when he was wrong. And due to this, he remembers something unpleasant. There was a time when he had animosity towards the bandits. To him, they deserved worse than death, if any of them made it alive. As Arthur decides to hunt them down himself. But suddenly he gets a flick on his head from Sylvia. As he gets up and asks, why did she do that, which she replies, that perhaps he is not wrong about them deserving death, that is why she did not choose to save that bandit. However, if he let his hatred consume him, then it would only cause harm to himself. And instead, he should proudly continue his life with a forward gaze. He will come across misfortune again, but he must not let greed and rage take him over, learn from it and face the future with a smile, only then will he be victorious. As she asks Arthur if she flicked him too hard. Looking at her, Arthur thinks, being lectured on morals by a figure that appears to be epitome of evil had oddly stricken him deeply. As she calls out to his name, and he suddenly snaps back to reality. She asks him, why is he not eating, and he smiles and replies, that it's fine. Suddenly Arthur notices that her wound is getting much worse than before. But she tells him to not worry, since it acts like that from time to time, which Arthur doubts. And suddenly she asks something, that to her understanding, humans usually awakens between 12 and 13, but he has already formed his mana core and able to utilize it efficiently than many adults. And Arthur replies, that it's because his parents call him a genius. Which prompts her to say that, then perhaps he might be able to learn this technique. And she stands up and shows him the ability to meditate and absorb mana while moving, even while fighting if he is good at it, surprising Arthur. As he is in awe, he asks her, how is she able to do that, to which she replies, that humans have very linear mindset in regards to mana, and instructs Arthur to do it with small mindless movements first, and go from there. As such, Arthur tries to by moving his hands at first and fails. And calls it easier said than done, and she explains that mana beasts learn it naturally, but since humans awaken late, their bodies cannot do such multitasking. But since he is different, if he practices hard enough, he should be able to do it. Which excites Arthur as he is determined to succeed. At first when he tries to, he slips and falls. And practicing this skill to its fullest would mean to fight proficiently while still maintaining a steady inward flow of mana. He starts to swing his sword, and is able to maintain the flow of mana. Noting that he succeeded, he excitedly calls out to Sylvia. But suddenly he sees her lying down flat on the ground. Which fills him with worry, as he shouts her name. Arthur rushes towards her to check her condition. And asks her on what happened. In worry, he notices he is standing on her pool of blood. He grabs her and tries to turn her over using mana augmentation. And is successful and sees her wound to be getting worse very quickly. Noticing the dimensional rift, he starts to think that perhaps it's due to it. But after thinking about it, he is confirmed that it's due to that as he gets flashes of memory about the time he spent with her. He falls to his knees and realizes that it's getting worse due to her creating the dimensional rift. Words are not coming out of his mouth, but tears are flowing like river from eyes as he starts to blame himself. But saliva speaks up, saying that it's okay, little one. He cries and asks her, how is it fine, when she is dying for him? Arthur cried, and for much longer then admits, and for the first time like he was a child on the outside. As Sylvia asks him if he has calmed down, which he has not. She tells him that they don't have much time left together, she would hate to waste it with him blaming himself over it. But he replies, how can he not blame himself when she is sacrificing herself just so he can meet his family? But she replies that he is doing her a favor to leave this forsaken cave a little faster. She tells him that her really does not suit her form as her black armor starts to break away. It causes a bright orange glow, revealing wings of pure white. And a patch of white, long hair, with Arthur in shock, as her true self is revealed to be a white dragon. She asks him if she looks a bit more like Sylvia now. In shock, he asks if she is a dragon and she replies that humans does refer to her as that, though they do not have much time left for idle chatter in her this form. She tells him she needs to finish the portal in her original form, and since her veil is down, they will be coming for her, as Arthur is confused, asking, who are they? We see the portal is shining incredibly bright. As Sylvia tells Arthur to listen carefully, there are few things she must say before they part, as she starts to give him something from her wings. We see it's a rainbow-colored egg. Noting about it, Arthur thinks it was not something heavy, yet he felt he could barely hold it. Sylvia also pulls out one of her own feathers and gives it to Arthur to use it and conceal the egg's aura. She also bumps her face onto him and tells him to bear with her for one more thing. Suddenly we see his hands glowing red and marking appearing on it, similar to Sylvia's. She tells him that it would reveal itself when the time comes. Noticing her eyes, Arthur asks if she is okay, but she ignores and tells him that she will open the portal now, though she did not have time to make it go directly to his home. It should arrive somewhere near humans, as she tells him to hurry, but Arthur asks if he is going to leave her just like that. Suddenly the cave trembles and debris starts to fall on Arthur. But Sylvia shields Arthur with her wings from it. Someone comes, calling her Lady Sylvia and asking her to stop being stubborn and hand it over. And if she submits now, they would heal her wounds. Arthur, looking at him, notes that he looks similar to Sylvia's previous form. As he tells her that she has already caused quite a bit of trouble, suddenly something happens. The whole area gets covered in a white barrier-like place. With Sylvia saying that she wants to confess something, that she intentionally prolonged the transportation spell so she could spend more time with him. And that she won't ask him to forgive her, but she has one more selfish request. She asks him if he could call her grandma just once. He grabs her wings and is on the verge of crying, asking her to come with him. Though he does not know what she did, but everything is frozen right now, they can leave together. And Sylvia starts to get tears, saying that he knows she cannot do that. And she removes his hold on her wings and pushes her into the portal, saying, farewell, Art. Crying, he calls out to her name, trying to reach for her. Looking at her sad face, he finally calls her grandma. And with a smile of satisfaction, she thanks him wholeheartedly for it for the last time, referring to Arthur as her own child. We see the portal opening outside and dropping Arthur, as he lays in the forest, with his hands reaching towards the sky. With frustration upon his realization that Sylvia is gone, he grips the leaves tightly, and the fact he would never see her again makes him scream loudly, scaring all the birds away. Fast forward, and it gets morning as Arthur is still lying on the ground, with his mind swarmed with memories of Sylvia whom he spent for months with. For a time that seemed both long and short, as she treated him like her own blood, and taught her things that he lacked coming to this world. As suddenly his chest starts to thump loudly, as he wonders what is happening. And he hears Sylvia's voice, greeting Arthur. Arthur thinks she is alive, but she clarifies that if he is listening to this right now then, it means she has shown him what she actually is. Remembering back then, Arthur realizes that she managed to leave a message for him back then. Sylvia tells him it might be frustrating, but he is not ready for the truth yet. Since he has a body of a boy who barely passed 4, and while his mana core has already progressed to the dark red stage, he is not strong enough. But as a small gift, she has infused her unique will into him, and his future development as a mage will depend on how well he uses it, as Arthur grabs his chest and thinks he would rather have her. And that she can imagine what he must be feeling right now: sorrow, anger, guilt. But she tells him to remember that he has a family to return to, and a purpose to fulfill in this life. As her only wish for him is to embrace the joys and innocence of childhood, and become a man of which both his parents and she can be proud of. And when his mana core reaches past the white stage, he will hear from her once more, and at that time she would explain everything, and until then she bids him farewell. And with a surprising twist, she calls him King Grey, which surprises Arthur. Fast forward, and questions continued to pester Arthur as she disappeared, wondering for how long has she known his identity. And how did she even know? But one thing was clear, is that if he focused only on training for the sake of revenge, it would be just like his previous life. And from now on, he would only move forward. But firstly, he wonders just where the hell is he? Arthur gathers mana, and dashes into the forest. And quickly climbs up a tree. From there he looks over, though even with mana, his vision is restricted, but he is sure of one thing. The fact that he was deep in Elshire Forest. And even just barely being able to use the mana rotation that Sylvia taught him. He is able to use magic for a lot longer, though he still wonders how did he even end up here. Since Sylvia said he would arrive near other humans, but he decides to keep on looking. And noting that he is getting good at traversing the trees. Suddenly he hears a sound, which was like that of a human. And he suddenly dashes towards the location and spots them. And he hopes that they would take him with them. Though he suddenly notices something and climbs down the tree to check. He hides behind a tree and listens using his mana. He hears a girl calling for help and the guy smacking her to shut her up. As they get ready from being able to leave this damned forest after a few days. Noting that they caught a elf, who goes for a lot, not to mention she is a child and a virgin at that, so she will fetch a lot. As they shut her up and starts to put her in the carriage, while Arthur is getting pissed. As he realizes that they are slave traders. And we also get a glimpse of the child elf that they have kidnapped. Fast forward to morning, we see the bandits are hurrying up to leave the forest, as Arthur is observing them, wondering how did they got forest hounds, and he would need one, if he wants to get out of this forest. As for those slave traders, with the stuff that happened to him recently, he was going to use them to let out some steam. Even though he is quite eager, he would still need a plan to deal with them. And dealing with them first was the best course of action for him. Though he didn't strike immediately, and just followed them. As attacking 4 of them head-on would be suicide even for him. As such he simply continued to follow them, and waited. And also gathered his strength at the same time, to make his move when their guards were down. Finally, he notices the perfect chance and grabs a berry from nearby plant. He throws that picked berry on a tree, as the hounds notice it. They start to bark, and one of the trader tells the other to shut them up before they wake up the beasts. And for Arthur, without any weapon he is forced to utilize a technique from his previous life. A technique he was not sure would work in this world. As the trader is teasing them with food, we see Arthur sneaking up behind him. When he comes down, making a sound, the trader notices, but it's too late. As Arthur quickly slashes his throat, and grabs his body, as to not make any sound of him falling. And he also grabs the dagger that the trader was holding. And with those hounds sniffing blood and drooling over the corpse, they dive in and starts to eat the body of the trader. Noticing that it's taking him quite long, the other one goes on to check on him. He gets scared upon seeing the hounds feast on his body, and Arthur sneaks up behind him. And grabs his mouth, and slashes him apart as well. And Arthur notes that fighting is quite hard in his current body, and decides to finish it before the other 2 awakens. But he suddenly hears one more of them from the carriage. As such he quickly hides, as those 2 come out looking for other guys. The bald one notices something behind him. And just when Arthur attacks, he is able to block his strike. But Arthur slips from between his legs and cuts of his tendons. Hearing the shouting, the other guy comes running to check, and the bald guy informs him that Arthur is a kid mage. Noting that, the guy throws off his weapon, calling Arthur a golden egg that landed in front of them, and he wouldn't want to kill him accidentally. And that perhaps he would fetch for even higher than the little elf girl. Suddenly he appears behind Arthur, and smashes the ground, which Arthur dodges. As he tries to attack again, Arthur kicks something off right at his face, which damages him and pisses him off. And Arthur immediately follows up with throwing a dagger at him, which he catches. As he calls him out for having some cute tricks, he once again suddenly appears right in front of Arthur, preparing for a kick, with Arthur noting that he is fast and tries to block the kick, but fails to do so. As such, Arthur falls onto the ground, and he comes over to pick him up. He grabs Arthur upside down, telling him to give up since he cannot do anything with his little body. Arthur thinks of condensing fire magic, just like he did with mana, and created a blade. And the condense spell causes an explosion right on his hand. He gets really pissed upon it, while Arthur grabs his dagger, in cover of smoke. He quickly throws the dagger at him from behind his back, right through his neck. And with that he finally ends up taking all of them down. He moves towards the last guy to finish him off, as he begs for mercy, but Arthur tells him that the little girl said the same thing. Inside the carriage, we see her crying, as Arthur comes along and smiles, telling her that it's safe. As she hears the words that she can go back home, her face shows a sense of relief. With a blindfold on the little elf, and she asks, "What is this for?" To which Arthur tells her that there are things that little kids are better off not seeing, though she argues that he is also one, and he also tells her to not take the clothes off until he tells her to, and he leads her away from the scene. Now as they are far away, Arthur starts to remove her blindfold. As he tells her that she can look now, we finally get the full view of the little elf, as she thanks Arthur. And Arthur immediately tries to leave by saying, "It was nice meeting you." But she grabs onto his clothes, with her puppy asking him to not leave her behind. But Arthur tells her that he needs to go home, and those bad guys also won't chase her anymore, and generally elves would be safe in the forest anyways. But she nods her head with a strong no, as she tells Arthur that beasts are only scared of adults, and that her parents told her that kids will get eaten by hounds or tree golems. Arthur finally gives into his MC status, and asks her, how long will it take to get to where she lives? She simply replies that she does not know nervously, and such Arthur tells her to stay at one place, and he would go gather some supplies, and it won't take long. With an innocent smile, she agrees. Arthur goes back to the carriage, and salvages everything he could. And neither of them knew how long their journey would take, and he has to think about his journey back as well. Though he considers it unfortunate that they cannot take the carriage, but they would have stood out in it anyways. He cuts the rope and frees the hounds as well. And he hopes that elves have something that can take him back to the human kingdom. He comes to the little elf and gives her clothes that he found in the carriage, which he thought was hers. She thanks him, and Arthur pats her on her head. And he smiles while telling her to let's get her back home. Fast forward, and it's morning, and as they walked in the vague direction she pointed to, he got to know more about her. He asks for her name, and she replies, "It's Tessia Erelith," and she asks the same thing to him. He replies, "Arthur Lay Win," and she asks on how did he end up here. Arthur tells her that it's long story, and she replies, "They got plenty of time." He shortly tells her that he was separated from his family, and she confirms, if he came from the human kingdom then. Which he admits, though she then asks, if it's true that all male humans are perverts and have more than one wife. Arthur is surprised, and asks her who told her such a thing. She replies, her grandpa, and Arthur tells her that there are perverts among elves too, and asks if she even knows what that means, which apparently she does not. And to answer her question, only some nobles prefer to have multiple wives, and she finally gets it. Arthur asks her on how is it like living in Illinois, and she replies, it's fun. She spends a lot of time with her grandpa and caretakers, since her parents are busy. And once she awakens, she would also get a mentor to train under, which she is pretty excited about, and Arthur replies, that education seems quite indiscriminating to him there, if everyone is assigned a private mentor upon awakening. Though she does not get what he means by that, and Arthur moves on from it. Tessia asks Arthur on what happened to those bad guys, and he replies, that they ran into an unfortunate accident. She asks if they would come for her again, and he promises her that they won't. She thanks him for everything, as it gets night time. We see them settled up with a tent and a fireplace. And Arthur tells Tessia to get some sleep, and she asks what about him then. He replies, that he would be keeping a guard outside. As Arthur wanted to use this time to figure out what was this will that Sylvia left him with. Tessia peeks out of the tent, and asks if he is sure about not getting any rest, though her grandpa told her to not share bed with anyone, but she won't tell anyone about him. He replies, that it's okay since he is not much sleepy, and she starts to head back inside. She once again peeks out, saying that she remembered that beasts will likely appear if they notice him out there since he is a kid. And with a blushing face, she proposes to him that he should keep a guard inside, for their own safety. He heads inside as well, and Tessia tries to play it off, that it's not due to she is scared, it's just for their safety. While sleeping, she grabs Arthur's clothes. And Arthur smiles, telling Tessia to sleep, since she had it rough as well. Now it gets morning as we both of them still sleeping. They continued on their journey, with unfamiliar surroundings and time quickly passing as their only indicator. And after Tessia's initial desperation and fears had passed on, it was quite obvious that she did not know how to interact with Arthur. And the worries about his families and impatience about going back home also didn't left Arthur in a good mood. As it again starts to get night, they light the fire and creates a tent. But suddenly while working, Arthur has a sudden pain, which made his journey almost unbearable, and it struck him unpredictably on his mana core. Noting that, Tessia comes along and asks about his condition, though he simply replies that he is fine. Despite hearing that, Tessia still looks worried. Now it gets night and again he gets a pain in his chest, as it gets hard for him to even rest. Another morning, as they continue on to their journey, with Tessia looking at Arthur with a bit of worry. Behind them we see some hounds are stalking them, but suddenly a dagger is struck right beside them, and Arthur comes along, scaring them away. While walking, once again Arthur feels the pain as he suddenly hides behind a tree, as it is coming more frequently now. Thinking to tell her about it, he decides not to, since it would only worry her. Another night, and Tessia is putting blanket over Arthur. Now fast forward and days have passed, Tessia is also recognizing more and more of this unfamiliar surroundings. But their pace slowed, since her body is not able to keep up with the toll of constant traveling. As such, Arthur takes over her load, and uses mana to carry it. But despite all that, his pain continued to grow and it had become harder for him to hide it. Noting it, she comes running towards him worried, though he makes an excuse that it's due to him wanting to go toilet. One more night, and they get more comfortable in sleeping together. Again at morning, she tugs on Arthur's clothes trying to say something. She asks him, since they have become close, can she call him Art, just like the rest of his family? He replies, he does not mind, and Tessia is surprised that he agreed just like that. Though he teases her, that he would be honored if Tessia Erelith refers to the humble countryside boy as Art. She again nags, that he is again talking like some weird old men, and Arthur hits back, that at least he is not a crybaby who cannot even pee, without him being nearby with eyes and ears closed. Which causes her to pull his cheeks. And suddenly she notices a glowing T symbol on a tree. She tells Arthur excitedly that she sees something, though Arthur does not believe and simple jokes with her that he also sees leaves, fog and trees. Though despite everything and their mental age gap, they have undoubtedly gotten much closer. Next morning, Tessia starts tapping on all the trees. And suddenly she gets excited and happy, leaving Arthur confused, as she tells him that they have arrived. The huge tree suddenly starts glowing, and opens up. And Tessia gives her hand to Arthur, calling him to come with her. Getting through the portal, he falls on the ground as Tessia pokes him. As she tells him that they have arrived. As upon seeing the city, Arthur's mouth opens wide. And we see its huge, underground city, with various houses up on the wall, connected to each other with ropes. And all Arthur could say was that it was pristine, and even that did not do justice to the scene in front of him. Sudden many green beam of lights gather in front of Tessia and Arthur. And as it starts to gather up, Tessia gets in front of Arthur to defend him. We see it's the servants, who greets Tessia, as she turns out to be a royal princess. Arthur is left speechless and confused as he wonders who are they talking about, and finally facing Tessia, who nods that it's indeed her. The servant comments that they rushed as soon as the royal teleportation gate was used. And we see Tessia's parents also comes running worrying about her. Her dad, King of Elenoia, Alduin Erelith, and her mom, Queen of Erelith, Muriel Erelith. And behind them is Virian Erelith, whose name is noted in every history book, the former king of Elenoia, who led the last war against the humans of the Sapin Kingdom. As he looks at Arthur and Tessia, and smiles. And seeing all that, Arthur pushes Tessia to them. As her family surrounds her and hugs her tightly. As Arthur wonders upon seeing it, that if his family would also react like this when they see him. Alduin thanks Arthur, not just as the king, but also as Tessia's father, and as a gratitude he invites him to accompany to their home, for helping out Tessia. And with a sharp gaze, tells him that he can get some rest, and tell them what happened afterwards. Noting that his tone is gentle but his eyes is showing that it's not an offer, but an order, as Arthur also bows down, while saying that he is honored. But suddenly Tessia comes running to him and grabs him, surprising everyone. As she happily tells him to come with her, since there are a lot of things that she wants him to see. Upon seeing the castle, he is left speechless, even after expecting it already to be impressive. As he goes inside and sees its luxury, he wonders just what kind of corny novel did he end up inside. Princess tells their servants to get Arthur washed up and into a room to rest, as he is their guest. Arthur thanks them, but says that he would like to explain what happened first. As such, we see them all sitting around in a sort of meeting room. Arthur introduces himself as Arthur Le Win, from a humble town in Kingdom of Sapin, and that he is honored to be in the presence of the royal family. Though he realizes that it's a little over-the-top introduction, but discussions won't progress if they keep treating him like a child. The king tells him that he seems quite well educated despite claiming to be from a humble town, and asks him to tell them what happened. And as such, Arthur explained to them his journey from a vague account, and that he got separated from his family after running into some bandits, though it was not a lie, but a half-truth, and as the story progressed to their daughter, the atmosphere in the room changed. We see the king gets pissed hearing about the slave traders, as he blames the whole human race. Though Arthur also gets a little angry, and tells him that slave trading is a profession not a race. Hearing which, guards pull up their weapon on him, but Virion calms them down. Virion questions, so since he saw those slave traders take her daughter, did he negotiated with them, or begged them for their mercy? Arthur claims that while he is a child, he is also a mage, and such he eliminated the slaves, and rescued his granddaughter. Taking it as a lie, a guard pulls out his sword for disrespecting them. But Elder Virion backs them off as he looks at them with his intimidating eyes. And Arthur continues on, regardless of anyone believing him, almost calling her Tess. He changes it to Princess Tessia, and that she has returned safely, and all he wishes for is to go back to his family in Sapin. Hearing that, Tessia stands up, asking if he is going to leave already. Hearing Tessia call Arthur Art, surprises her parents and her grandfather, who smiles. Arthur replies, because the history between humans and elves, he does not think it would be appropriate for him to stay for too long here. And his top priority is to make sure his family is safe, and let them know that he is okay as well. King Alduin says that regardless of the past, he did have saved their daughter and also got her back all the way to them, which entitles him to a befitting reward. Though he informs him that the teleportation gate linked with Sapin Kingdom is only accessible once every 7 years, during the summit conference between the 3 races. And it would take another 5 years for the gate to open again. But they would be happy to send a group of their own guards to escort him home. And that he would also like to extend his hospitality, even though some are tolerant, many of them still hold grudges against humans due to the war long ago. And for now, he can make himself at home, and his escort will be prepared by tomorrow morning. For which, Arthur thanks him. Arriving in his room, he is left speechless due to its sheer luxury. Though since he is too tired, he does not think about it and goes to bath. Suddenly he gets that pain again, and it's getting worse as well. After the bath, holding the egg, he ponders on what to do and wishes if Sylvia was with him, she would have helped him. Suddenly he gets a knock on his door. As he opens the door, we see it's Tessia, and she headbutts him right in his stomach. She is quite angry with him for talking coldly to her family, and then trying to go back already. But Arthur tells her that he was not being cold, he was being respectful since they are king and queen of the entire kingdom, and asks her, why did she not inform him before? But Tessia just plays it around as she forgot, pissing Arthur off. Though she is still angry, as she tells him that she does not want him to leave, since he is the first friend she had. And Arthur smiles upon hearing it. And he gets close to her, and tells her to show him around the castle. They arrive at their garden, which is Tessia's favorite place in the castle, and if he stays until spring, he could see all the flowers bloom here. But at least he would be able to see the glow bees harvesting. As she picks it off to show it to him, calling it pretty. Just as he is about to touch it, he notices something coming from behind him. As that object is coming towards them, Arthur pulls down Tessia to save her, and grabs it in mid-air, and immediately launches the counter-attack. But his attack gets blocked by the mysterious figure. And we see it's Virion, who greets them, and Arthur is surprised, asking if he was trying to kill his own granddaughter, though he replies that it might have left her a small welt, but he doubts if that toy he is holding could kill anyone. And Arthur notices that it's indeed a toy, as he is bamboozled. Virion praises Arthur for his great reaction and instincts, and he was surprised to see him catch his little present and use it against him. But his mana usage is mediocre, but he can see now how could he take care of few slave traders. Tessia comes along and asks her grandfather to stop teasing Arthur, but he tells them that she should know why did he come here. And Arthur gets nervous about that thought. Virion tells Arthur that it's been a while since he met someone interesting. As such, he tosses him a wooden sword and tells him to show what he is made of, while calling him a brat. Arthur grabs the sword and immediately swings it, aiming right for Virion's neck, surprising Tessia. As the blue mana around Virion disappears, and he calls Arthur a scary little brat. He gets ready once again and goes on to strike. He slashes, but only hits his cloak, and Virion appears right beside him. Virion tries to aim for Arthur's neck, but he notices, and is able to block his strike, though notices that it's really strong. While he is blocking with his one hand, Virion tries to punch him, but Arthur jumps back. But while Arthur is in mid-air, Virion elbows him and he is pushed back. While his sword is in mid-air, he dashes forward and grabs it again. We then see both of them clashing it out on an seemingly even ground. And Arthur notes that even after using mana and minimizing his movements, he is still unable to keep up with him. And suddenly Virion's speed increases as he appears right behind Arthur, ready to strike. Though Arthur notices it as his chance and jumps over Virion. He uses the ground for support and does a double jump and flicks his body in mid-air, and grabs his sword and goes on even faster, finally scratching his forehead a tiny bit. And Arthur goes tumbling back due to the impact, as Tessia shouts both his and her grandpa's name in worry. She picks Arthur up, and Virion is quite surprised, noting that he deserved this for being arrogant, and to think Arthur was actually able to land a hit on him. Though due to the spar, Tessia starts to pout at her grandpa. As her grandpa tries for a round two, Tessia pinches him, telling to not bully Arthur like that, and that he should have gone easier on him, but her grandpa replies, if he did, then it would have been Arthur who would have bullied him, and Arthur feels honored by his comment, and hearing that Virion's mood changes. And he suddenly asks Arthur to become his disciple if he thinks that way. And Tessia is quite confused, and Virion asks Arthur if he is agreeing to it. Arthur does not believe he is serious, but he replies, why would he not be, and Arthur says that he is a human, and questions if they are even allowed in this kingdom. Virion assures him that no one would dare to kick him out while he is under him, and he does realize that Arthur is better than other kids his age, even some adults, but tells him that what he can teach him is something even the best mages back in Sapin cannot. But Arthur declines, especially when he does not know his parents' condition nor they know if he is alive or not. But Virion offers him, what if there was a way for him to communicate with them and let them know that he is doing okay, and Arthur is confused by his statement. Now before continuing, he sends away Tessia with a servant to get her washed up and into bed. Continuing on, though he is being impatient, he sensed it earlier when he was sparring with Arthur, and asks if he is having pain where his mana core is, and if they are coming in frequently now, and it surprises Arthur. And he asks Virion on how does he know about it, and Virion replies, it's more so that he is not aware of the reason for his pain, that's a problem, and asks if he not know what a beast will is. Even though Arthur has not heard that term before, hearing that he immediately thought of when Sylvia struck him at his core. Virion explains, though he is sure that Arthur has encountered many beasts already, but when a beast is powerful enough to be considered as Class A or higher, it gains the ability to pass on their will or inherent ability down once, to either a offspring or a person they are bound to, though he won't pry on how he got his hands on such a powerful beast will, but at this stage, the power that is inside him is doing him more harm than good. And it prompts Arthur to ask, since he knows all this, if he has a beast will as well. Virion replies, he does, and he is something called Beast Tamer, a title which he can obtain as well, once he has fully conquered the monstrous beast will inside of him. He does realize that how important it is for him to go back to his family, but it is a grave risk since the power from his beast will is too potent for his immature body to handle. And if it's not controlled soon, then the power he obtained will destroy his body from the inside out. Fast forward and we see Arthur is sleeping, wondering what is this heavy sensation on his body, thinking if it's the personification of his worries, burdens or expectations, haunting him in his sleep. Though it only turns out to be Tessia, who is on top of him and waking him up, as he calls her a monster and tell her to wait 5 more minutes, which angers her greatly. As he wakes up, Tessia comments that his hair looks funny, and in return Arthur calls her hair to be of Medusa. She asks if it's true that he has decided to stay here, her grandpa told her in the morning, and he replies that it depends on his trip with Elder Virion. Suddenly she pinches him, and gets angry as Arthur is referring to her as Princess Tessia instead of Tess. Arthur agrees, and tells her to leave the room since he needs to shower, unless she wants to watch. She gets disgusted by it and calls Arthur a pervert, which angers him, since she does not even know its meaning. As Arthur is coming down, he hears King Alduin trying to convince Virion that it's not appropriate for a human to be residing in this kingdom. Same goes for the Queen as well. Even though she is grateful to Arthur for saving Tessia, it would go against their traditions if a human stays here, but Virion simply replies that he has taken a liking to it, and there will be no further discussion. Not to mention, Tessia is also in approval of the decision. Again Alduin tells him to reconsider, but Virion shuts him up, that he would be in his direct guidance, and tells Alduin to inform this to everyone in the kingdom. Looking at all that, Arthur is relieved knowing that Elder Virion can be trusted. As he arrives, Virion tells him he is quite late, they should hurry up. Inside the carriage, Arthur asks Virion on how long is it left, and refers to him as Gramps, which makes Virion to tease him about how comfortable he has gotten with him. He replies that he has to see how today goes with his mysterious friend. And we see Tessia has fallen asleep on Arthur's shoulder, and Virion comments how she was bugging him about Arthur since morning. As Virion gently caresses her sleeping face. Since being the only princess of this kingdom, she grew up lonely, and has been hurt too many times, by adults and children alike, which caused her to grow distant and build a wall around herself. But in the time she has been with Arthur, she has shown more smiles and laughs than in the last few years. And for that, he thanks Arthur wholeheartedly. The carriage stops and Tessia wakes up as they arrive. We see it's a small cozy little house. As Arthur wonders who is this mysterious person who brought a former king all the way here. Suddenly Virion kicks on the door, shouting her and calling her old witch. And an old lady comes out, shouting that her ears are perfect, referring to Virion as Old Grouch. He introduces her to Arthur as Rena Darkasson, and she is a special deviant who can help him. And Arthur introduces himself formally. Though ignoring all that, she tells them to come inside as they don't have all day. Observing her house, noting she is like his mother, someone whose magic does not fall into the 4 basic elements. Sitting down, Arthur asks her on how would she help him reach his parents as Gramps told him. Noting Arthur calling Gramps, she comments that Virion must have a soft spot for him. She answers that she is a diviner, magic of this nature varies from mage to mage, but she considers herself to be quite capable, meaning there is very little anyone can hide from her if she chooses to try. For example, she knows that Arthur is special, so special that even she cannot see some parts of his life. But her eyes have seen pieces of both his past and future. Though she does know that he is not here for her clairvoyance abilities, but rather for his parents to let them know that he is all right, as such she instructs him to look into the basin of water, and to focus the image of his parents as clear as possible. And once he is able to see them in the water, he would be able to speak to them. He first describes his mom, with her auburn hair, sun-kissed complexion, radiating a gentle warmth and thin brows always knitted together, and his dad, with his strong blue gaze and goofy smile that brightens the dullest of days, and simple nature, and he wishes them to be alive. As he slowly opens his eyes, they widen in response of seeing something. Switching scenes, we see Alice is cooking some food and invites Reynolds to eat. Looking at the stew, which is amazing, he asks if there is any special occasion. She replies, it's nothing like it, it's just been some time since she cooked for him since they shifted here. As she sits while Reynolds gives her support. Looking at the food, her eyes are filled with sadness as it was Arthur's favorite dish. Noticing Alice saying something, Reynolds asks about it and she replies that it's nothing. As she sighs and puts her hand on her belly. Suddenly they both hear a voice, who is Arthur, greeting them. Knowing which, spoon fell from Reynolds' hands. He tells them they are probably surprised hearing his voice in their head, and he would explain it later, but for now he wants them to know that he is alive and safe. As he managed to survive the fall off the cliff, though barely, and it should be kept a secret that he is currently staying in the kingdom of Elenoia with elves. He knows that it must have been hard for them. It's been hard for him too, but he is glad that they are okay. And he hopes that they don't blame each other for what happened. As he is proud for what he's done and he would do it again if he could go back in time. Even if it meant that he would die. Though he wishes that he could be with them, but it's a little hard right now to do so, as he have a sort of illness that he needs to get treated. But he is not in any danger, though he needs to get treated before he head back home. And he is not sure when he could reach out to them like this next time. But there is a mage, that's a deviant just like you, Mom. And she is the one who is allowing you both to hear my voice. And Dad, you'll keep practicing magic and fighting while I am here, recovering. Don't be too surprised if I can beat you in a match next time we meet. Until then, Keep Mom and the baby safe. As hearing all that, Reynolds starts to get teary, and so does Alice. As they rejoice about it, and Arthur tells them that he loves them both, and to take care until he gets back. As seeing their face in the water bowl, Arthur also cries. But he pulls himself up, which Virion notices. And with tears in his eyes and a face full of determination, he tells Virion that he is ready. Now as they arrive back in castle, we see both king and queen waiting for them. As they are entering, they both stop Arthur. The king tells Arthur that years of being a king has made him a bit old-fashioned. And the queen taps on his shoulder, while telling him that the king is trying to apologize for earlier, and asks him to accept the apology and consider this place as his own. While Virion observes them talking and smiles. And as the savior of their daughter and first disciple of his father, the king welcomes Arthur again, this time properly. And Arthur shakes his hand, while thanking him for his generosity. But suddenly Tessia jumps in, saying that if they are really sorry to him, then they must let them play outside, since she wants to show him around the city. Fast forward, and Arthur is waiting outside and Tess finally comes. We see her all readied up, raring to go. They both walk around the city, as Tessia is dragging Arthur with her. While walking, they suddenly bump into someone, and Arthur apologizes. We see it's some blondie with a typical trash mob syndrome as he mocks Arthur that he got human germs from him. He tries to act cool while looking like the most basic side character ever, as he mocks Arthur for getting all high just because Elder Virion favors him a bit. Arthur cringes noting him to be a blatant cliché side character, and thinks to mess with him a bit, while Tess tells Arthur to ignore him. He tries to act cool in front of her, telling her to leave him and let him, Faerith Ifsar second to escort her. Arthur with a devious smile, gasps sarcastically upon hearing his name. Acting like Faerith is famous, and Faerith buys his acting for a second, but realizes later after hearing Arthur mispronounce his name. As Tess laughs at him, while Arthur calls him ignorant. He bows down to Faerith, mocking him that he had no clue he was in a presence of such a great person, and that this bug would remember him to give him proper respect. As such both of them tries to leave, but Faerith stops them, saying, does he really think he cannot see their sarcasm, and Arthur thinks that he is not as dense as he thought. So for the pride of his family, he challenges Arthur to a duel, leaving Arthur speechless in surprise. But Tess comes forward, and tells them, how dare they challenge the disciple of Virion, and even if he is of noble blood, he should know his place. Though Faerith mockingly apologizes and argues that his father taught him to never let anyone trample on your pride. He dares Arthur to either accept the duel or run with his tail between his legs, whichever it is, it would reflect on his mentor as well. Looking around, he wonders if a duel is an important thing here, while Faerith takes his silence as acceptance. Now we see Tess is about to start the duel, as everyone around is standing and watching. As she starts the duel, Faerith takes out his wand immediately. But before he could say another word, Arthur comes dashing and punches him right on the face, knocking him with just that. As Arthur is himself surprised as well, while Tess knew that this would happen. She grabs Arthur and they both make a run for it. As such, he couldn't help but appreciate the little princes more and more. While their rest of the day was not as fun as playing with Faerith, it was refreshing and allowed him to get his mind off things. Finally they both stop at a bridge, as Tess asks Arthur if he is nervous about his training which is starting tomorrow. He remembers Virion's words, that he assures Arthur that his lesson would not be easy. Never mind the pain from his mana core, the assimilation process used by beast tamers often been compared to submerging your body in boiling tar, and he will be stuck here, in a foreign land without the comfort of his family. Even his daily life will become arduous, but if he can endure, the payoff will be enormous, asking if he is up for it. Back to the present, Arthur claims that he is excited. He has come a long way to get where he is, the training, his parents, he is excited for all of that and many more. And he cannot wait to see what the future has in store for him. Now fast forward and there is a time skip of 3 years. We get a glimpse of Tess, who is calling out Arthur, as she grabs his ankle and twists it, while saying that they're going to be late. While he tells her to stop as he gives up, and we see his ankle gets bruised up as she used actual mana to twist it, and asks if she cannot find any gentler way to wake him up. And we get a look at time skip Tess, saying that it's not her fault that he did not wake up when she asked nicely, and he should feel grateful that such a pretty girl is waking him up. And Arthur makes fun of her by saying that he finds the maid here plenty pretty, which pisses her off. While walking downstairs, she is still hung up on him saying about the maids, while Arthur tries to let her go of it. Virion is down there, saying that they both took long enough, and to get ready for their lesson. There exists for basic elements and their higher forms, which are ice, gravity, lightning and sound. They can only be controlled by a mage who has gone beyond the mastery of their foundational elements, which are known as deviants. Dwarfs can manipulate earth and or fire, but like elves, they possess much higher affinity with these two elements. Their distinct trait is the fact that all dwarfs can mold and bend metal, while talented dwarfs can control fire and earth to such high degree that they are able to conjure and manipulate magma. Elves are limited to water, wind, and earth elements, but with much higher affinity than humans. In rare cases, elves can also produce a special deviant capable of controlling plants. However, they are not able to produce mages that can manipulate higher forms of water, wind, or earth. Human mages possess the ability to manipulate any four of the basic elements. They are only race capable of producing deviants in any of those elements, along with anomalies that cannot be categorized in any of the elements, such as emitters, healers, for example. There exists a subtle power balance between three races, taking into account population, overall inherent affinity to elements and diversity in mages. And Arthur asks if his explanation was good enough. Virion thinks and replies that it's passable. Tess raises her hand for a question and asks. She knows that assimilation process is to get ready Arthur's body to handle his beast will, but wouldn't it be better for him to train physically while using magic like her? Arthur thinks he knew all his lessons beforehand, but the difference in races have shown over the past 3 years. While humans are considered talented if they awaken in late preteen, for elves it was not surprising to awaken as 10, and for Tess, it happened even earlier, at the age of 9. Virion asks Tess if she is angry that she is the only one getting beat up while training, to which she nods, and as since her awakening, she has been training her conjuring skills with a tutor and learning how to fight from her grandfather. With Arthur noting that she is going to be quite the monster in future, though he should not be the one to talk. Virion explains to Tess what Arthur is doing is fusing his bones, muscles, and organs with his mana, while he has not been training physically like her, but he assures her that his body will be stronger and more resilient than a veteran warrior. She jokes that how can he be sensitive to pain when she hits him, which pisses Arthur off as he shouts that he still feels pain. Virion notes that 3 years of fusion has not been enough to sap away his energy, and asks if he is ready again, to which he nods. He tells Arthur that after today he will be like a true beast tamer, unlike those adventurers who merely uses beast will as tools. He tells him that he is going to ignite his mana core by inserting a large amount of mana, and he would feel a bit warm, but it should not be too bad. As the mana spreads throughout his body, he starts to feel immense pain. And it suddenly causes an explosion, sending both Virion and Tess flying away. With Virion getting slammed into a tree, and Tess falls on the ground. Virion is shocked, as he wonders what in the world happened. And they both comes running towards Arthur. Tess asks him if he is okay, to which he replies, he is fine, and Virion says he does know he has his reasons for not telling him until now, but he wants to ask one more time, what kind of beast will does he have? He hesitantly replies that she was a dragon. Hearing which shocks Virion, as he starts to lose it while knowing that he trained an actual dragon tamer, as Arthur starts to fall unconscious. Fast forward and he wakes up in his bed, with Virion asking how does he feel. But Arthur says he should be the one asking that, since last thing he saw was him going crazy, and Virion replies that he has calmed down. With Arthur asking them to keep it a secret, even after he leaves, which Virion replies, of course. And that on the topic of leaving, his date of departure has been set for months from now, which surprises Arthur as he thought it wouldn't be for another 2 years, but Virion says that an interracial tournament among the 3 kingdom youths that was in works is now confirmed, and the portal to Zyra's city of Sapin will open to both Elenia and the kingdom of Darv during the time. Arthur is quite excited about it, but he realizes that it's why Tess is not here, and asks if this is the case. But Virion tells him to not worry about her. He knows that he has been checking up on his parents using Rena past few years, but he would finally able to see them. Though he is still a bit sad since for months is pretty soon. Virion rubs his head, and says that he would make him wish that these for months would over soon, and now since he has finished his assimilation, it would get harder. He leaves saying that he would break this news to Tess gently, and he sits on his bed, pondering about the 4 months. But suddenly he notices the egg falling from the sofa. Wondering what happened, as the egg starts to crack. He gets a bit nervous and wonders if it's breaking. As it starts to crack more, we see an eye looking out from it. Arthur freaks out that Sylvia's stone was actually an egg. The egg cracks even more, and a tail comes out from it. And as it completely breaks, we see a baby dragon comes out of it, who shakes his head and yawns. And seeing which, Arthur is left completely speechless. Now fast forward, we see Arthur holding him up and they both stare and look at each other. As Arthur asks him if he is a dragon, and he responds with happy noises. Seeing his face, Arthur also melts due to how cute it is. But suddenly he chomps on Arthur's arm. As his hand starts to pain, and we see some smoke coming out of it and some kind of symbol appears where he bit. As the baby dragon says something, and Arthur hears it in his head that he is calling him Mama, which confuses him. Arthur looks down on the dragon, realizing that it's him and is actually calling him his Mama. Hearing all that, Arthur chuckles nervously, realizing that she can talk in his mind directly. And Arthur corrects him, that since he is a boy, he should call him Papa instead. As Arthur gently strokes her, and names her after her mother, Sylvia. Seeing her reaction, Arthur notes that she likes her name, and suddenly he feels her emotion of like her name directly as well. And notes that the mark is not as simple as it looks, as it's the actual thing connecting him to this little dragon. Realizing that he has a tattoo, and is a father at mere 8 years old, calling himself a rebel and falls asleep. At night he suddenly wakes up hearing a loud scream. Wondering what was that, and who was it? We see it's Tessia, who is tearing upon holding Sylvia and asking Arthur on who is this cute little creature. But seeing all this ruckus, Arthur simply takes over his blanket to go to sleep again, while Sylvia is trying to break free from Tess. Now next day, Arthur tells her about how he can communicate with her, and Tess says if she could communicate with her, then Sylvia would like her as well, but Arthur tells her she would, if Tess stops drooling over her like some predator. They meet Virion as Tess calls him to look at Arthur's new pet. And looking at her eyes and features, he freaks out knowing what it is. And that he would die if he keeps shocking him like this. But after he explains the situation to Virion, he explains that beings like Sylvie would usually hatch in the presence of their kin. Though they try to think of why she hatched in front of Arthur, but only reason that they can think was that he fully activated Sylvia's beast will. Arthur asks Virion if he has to hide her once he go back, since most people won't recognize her as such a powerful being. Virion replies that he should be okay if he just feign it as a rare mana beast. But he tells Arthur that he has other things to worry about, since they held back on strengthening his mana core during the assimilation, but now that he is fully awoken, they should get him to train both his core and dragon will. And Arthur asks what does he needs to do. And Virion smirks, and throws away his sword, saying, he found that best way to access the first stage of beast will, and to strengthen your mana core is to constantly engage in combat. Arthur stretches out for it, and Virion adds that it also makes sense that fighting a fellow beast tamer as he used these stages against you, which will help him even more, though Arthur gets confused upon hearing that. Suddenly a huge beastly aura covers up Virion with a loud roar, and both Arthur and Tess are pushed back from the force. As we see Virion covered up with a complete back form, with a yellow glowing eye, as he calls out Arthur to fight. Beast tamers, mages capable of harnessing the unique ability inherited from a mana beast. The first stage is known as acquire phase. It's when beast tamer is able to borrow their beast's inherent strengths. But it's only at second stage, the integrate phase, when the mage can truly utilize the beast's unique ability and characteristics. And for Virion, who had only unlocked his second stage after decades of studying, he was able to utilize the deadly prowess of a shadow panther. And now Virion warns Arthur to be careful of him sneaking up behind him. Arthur thinks that he is mocking him by implying that he can sneak up behind him even after he is warned. Suddenly Virion disappears, and instantly reaches behind Arthur. Arthur looks behind him, but by then he has already moved again, and appears right beside him, with Arthur unable to do anything but be incredibly nervous. As such he surrenders, as he cannot even react to his speed, and finds his form trauma-inducing. Virion dials back, and says that he has been told that many times. But this form is not without flaws, as it takes quite a bit out of him. And Arthur comments that his movement are one thing, but he cannot even sense his presence, and Virion replies, shadow panthers are able to instinctively manipulate wind and sound to achieve such effect. And now that he has bullied Arthur enough, he gives him the sword to actually start the training. Fast forward, and days passed quickly, and through Virion's guidance and his own instincts, Arthur was able to reach the first stage of his dragon will, and Virion also taught Arthur on how to hide his beast will in front of other mages. And when he was not strengthening his mana core or studying Saliva's will, he was sparring against Virion, and luckily the assimilation process allowed him to keep up with constant training and conditioning. And in his downtime, he spent on embracing the joys of childhood, just as Saliva instructed him to do so. Until the day of his departure finally came. Spending every day together these last years made breaking the news of his departure even harder on Tess. As he prepares to leave, he puts on Sylvia's feather to hide the presence of Sylvie's mark. Virion taps on his shoulder as it's time to go, and that his carriage is waiting for him. And Virion gives him a sort of pendant which is adorned with Erelith House crest, and it would help him navigate the forest, and Arthur thanks him for that. Though he jokes around with him, that he can always find another princess to lead him back, which pisses off Tess. Arthur tells Tess that they will meet again soon, and next time with Virion teaching her, he expects her to be stronger than him. And she simply nods without saying anything. Suddenly Arthur hugs her, saying that he is going to miss her, and tells her to be safe. And it brings her to break down in tears, as she hugs him back tightly, saying that she is going to miss him as well. And he waves them goodbye, while climbing in the carriage. And inside we see it's Feyrith, who mocks and asks him if he has been kicked out of the kingdom. But Arthur asks, who is he? Feyrith gets pissed, and reminds him that he is the one who duelled him, and that he beat unfairly. As such Arthur finally remembers, but mispronounces his name. And Feyrith gets pissed about it, as he corrects Arthur again, saying that he is not that naive child anymore. As he is putting out his hand while lashing, Arthur grabs on it and climbs the carriage, greeting him and apologizing for bullying him. As such he also forgives, and simply nods, while the kid besides him tells Arthur to call him Feifei, just like them. Which embarrasses him, as he argues with his friends. Now a bright rainbow light shines inside the carriage as they are passing through the portal. As Arthur and rest of them looks out, noting that they have arrived. Arthur also looks out of the window, the place where his mom and dad are, which is the floating city of Xyrus. We see the city is bustling with people, and Arthur arrives where his family is supposedly living. He climbs up the step and stands in front of the door, and tells Sylvie that they are finally home and knocks on the door. He remembers his moments where he nearly died, lost someone important, and he killed and trained for his life. But for him nothing was more nerve-wracking than this moment. As suddenly he hears a little girl's voice from inside, and an old lady opens the gate, asking if she could help him. Arthur introduces himself, and says that his family is supposed to be living here. And from behind the old lady comes a little girl, asking, who is it? Suddenly Alice comes running for Eleanor, the little girl, who is Arthur's sister. As she is telling Eleanor to be careful about greeting everyone who knocks on the door, she is stunned upon seeing Arthur. And the food bowl falls from her hand, and hearing the name, Arthur realizes that it's his little sister. And he starts to cry, but before all that, he tells his mom that he is home. And she comes running towards him and they both hug each other tightly, as she tells Arthur that he knew that voice was his, and that her baby is finally home. And little Eleanor tugs Alice's clothes, telling her to not cry. Outside, we see Reynolds is also rushing towards them, with tears in his eyes, upon seeing his son. He also comes from behind and hugs his whole family, along with Arthur. And they all cry tears of joy with each other. Fast forward, Alice asks Arthur about his illness, and if it has been fully treated, and noting that he has gotten quite thin, and Arthur replies that he is completely fine, while Reynolds tells Alice that she is asking too many questions, and tells her to look and see how big and strong their son has gotten. Alice then tells Eleanor to come and greet her older brother. Hearing that, she slides down the sofa, with Alice telling her he is the brother whom they used to tell her about in bedtime stories. And hence, she greets Arthur with a cute smile. With all his past behind him, Arthur gets on his knees, and also greets her. And their parents look at both of them with a smile. And after getting settled, Arthur started explaining everything from the beginning. Though he trusted his family, he still left the part about Sylvia out, and said that he survived the fall due to luck and his body's unconscious use of mana to protect him, and continued on about finding Tess, and spending time with elves in the kingdom of Elenoia, while recovering. Reynolds asks about the little dragon, and Arthur tells him that he found her when he was traveling and stumbled into a mana beast's den. Her mother was dying from the injury, so he took her in his wings. Her mother again asks if he is really okay now, and if he has any chance of getting that illness again, and Arthur replies that she don't need to worry anymore. It just had to do something with his instability of mana core due to being awakening at an early age. Though he feels bad for keeping secrets from them, he notes that it's too dangerous for them to know right now. Suddenly his dad acts up, asking about what stage his mana core has reached, and Alice gets pissed, since Arthur just got home and he is already on topic of mana core. But Reynolds says, there is nothing wrong with comparing their growth, and he shows Arthur that after they got here, he has been working as the instructor for the Helsty auction house guards. And Arthur replies, so it was not just his facial hair that grew, and asks about his mana core stage. And Reynolds proudly replies, that he has broken through 2 years ago and entered the stage of dark orange. Arthur, impressed with that, tells him that he must have worked really hard, though looking at him, changes his mind. And he asks about Arthur's, to which he replies, it's light red. And it completely shocks Reynolds, as he says holy shit. But Alice gets pissed at Reynolds for cursing in front of Ellie, and Reynolds tries to tell Ellie to not say such word. And he comes back to Arthur in shock, asking if he really did reach that, and when, how. But forgetting all that, he tells Arthur to move to backyard for a spa right now, as Arthur laughs and thinks that it's good to be back. Suddenly hearing all that, a guy comes running asking Reynolds that he heard his son is alive. Seeing all that, he gets confused and wonders what is going on, and the rest of his family also arrives. And Arthur notes that these people are the one who were taking care of his family. We learn that guy's name is Vincent, and Reynolds introduces him to Arthur, the one who runs Helsty auction house and his old friend who Reynolds now work for, and this house is also his, and tells Arthur to introduce himself to him, before they start wrecking it, and such Arthur formally introduces himself. And tells them that it might come as a surprise to them, but he told his parents himself to not tell anyone that he is alive, and apologizes for the confusion. Surprised by his manners, Vincent asks if he is really related to Reynolds, which Arthur replies that he gets that a lot. Vincent's wife also introduces their daughter, Lilia, who is the same age as him, and her mother wishes for both of them to become friends. And Arthur and Sylvie both greets her, and seeing Sylvie's cuteness, Lilia gets an arrow right through her heart. Vincent asks, what do they mean about wrecking his house? And Reynolds replies that they were about to go out back for some sparring, which Vincent suddenly realizes about, and few minutes later actually sees it happening. We see both of them warming up in the backyard to start. And Alice and Vincent's wife are talking while Lilia and Ellie are playing with Sylvie. Vincent asks Alice if her husband is serious about Arthur being a light red core mage, and Alice replies she was surprised at first as well, but Arthur has always been a fast learner, and he does not lie. Vincent says, so he just have to believe that a 8-year-old has not only awakened but has progressed 3 stages, even those genius brats at the academy are at dark red stage, and they are 11 or 12. Hearing all that, Arthur thinks that it was good that he did not tell them that he is only at light red because he could not train his core due to his assimilation with Sylvia's will. Reynolds takes his stance, telling Arthur to be ready, since he is not the same person as before. And Arthur takes his stance as well, saying the same thing. Right after starting, Arthur dashes in. He appears right in front of Reynolds and punches him, which he blocks. As Reynolds is telling him to try harder, just then Arthur tries to backheel Reynolds in mid-air, which he dodges. And then suddenly changes his momentum to elbow Reynolds. But Reynolds grabs his hand and tries to throw him away. But Arthur grabs his onto his chest and tries to throw him onto the ground. But Reynolds dodges by backflipping using the ground as support. Arthur asks on what does he think, and he replies, it's not bad, and he was caught off guard by it. But he tells Arthur that he is about to get serious now, and clashes his fists together. And we see his fists are enveloped in flames, and he says that it's a trick he learned after he broke through the dark orange stage. Mages, starting from their awakening, have always had affinities, or strengths, in terms of what element they can best control. Parents seek out professionals for expensive testing on their child so that they can learn on early on what route to push their newborn mage towards. And in this world, conjurers have the innate advantage of being able to manifest and manipulate the element of their affinity. And for augmenters, their affinity of elements are much more subtle, and actual manifestation of the elements come only after the augmenter crosses a certain threshold. As for Reynolds, who had been fighting and training since an early age, but had no formal training, it took him until the orange core to be able to turn his explosive mana usage into actual fire. And from the world Arthur came from, elements weren't destined from birth, but a path that one took willingly. Talent was a large part of it, but since no one was restricted to just one affinity, hard work also played a role. As for Arthur, who had so many advantages since coming to this world, all of it culminated into this, as he learned a trick or two as well. And we see Arthur is clad in yellow lightning, while he tells his dad to not be surprised. as we see both of them standing face to face. Vincent and along with him, everyone is surprised knowing that Arthur is a deviant. And Reynolds smiles knowing that as well. Now we see Arthur dashing to Reynolds at extreme speed and appearing right behind him. Reynolds swings his arm backward to hit him, but Arthur dodges. Reynolds then stomps the ground, but Arthur jumps up. He falls back and dashes in once again, punching Reynolds, which he blocks. As we see, their attacks are creating quite the force, and they get ready to punch each other again. And when their fists collide, a large explosion occurs. And we see Reynolds is pushed back, but he immediately charges in again. Arthur blocks his punch and pushes him back. Reynolds tries to attack him again, but he dodges again, and his cracking lightning hits Reynolds' face. But Reynolds continues to attack, with punches so fast, creating multiple of them, but Arthur dodges again. Though it does graze him, and he thinks his punches are getting sharper, and he is also leveraging his longer reach that Arthur cannot reach. Arthur ducks down and slips under Reynolds, shocking everyone along with Vincent. As we see, both of them stops right before they hit each other, and they both start to smile, with Reynolds laughing and hugging Arthur, praising him for what he learned. As for Arthur, lightning was his most successful deviant affinity, though he still had ways to go, as ice was unstable and he could not even unlock sound or gravity, and as such, we see Virion hitting him for that. But still he felt good bragging to his parents. As Reynolds asks how did he learnt it and what else he can do, with Arthur replying, it was not long ago and he cannot do much else, with Ellie coming running towards them and Alice trying to stop her. With Vincent in shock, noting that he needs a drink, and his wife calling Arthur an extraordinary child. As Vincent's family leaves, leaving Arthur and his family for some alone time. Fast forward at the dinner table, Vincent asks Reynolds if he realizes what kind of future Arthur has. And he replies, of course, he knew ever since he awakened when he was 3. Which surprises his wife, and Alice comments that he blew up the house that time, with Reynolds calling it good times. And once again it leaves Vincent speechless. But he gets excited and asks Reynolds to enroll Arthur in Xyrus Academy. But Reynolds replies that he is only 3, and that academy is the most prestigious magic institution in the continent. But Vincent's wife tells him that her husband does have a point, since with his level of talent, it would be worth for them to even sponsor Arthur, so they won't have to worry about the tuition costs. But Alice feels bad about that, since after everything they done for them, and then letting them pay for their son's schooling, and besides Arthur is only 8, they won't even consider him. But Vincent chuckles as he reveals that he does a lot of business with the famed director of the Xyrus Academy, so he can talk to her. But Arthur gets in, saying that since it's his future, he would also like to say something. Fast forward and it's night time, with their servants cleaning up the table, and Ellie sleeping. And both Alice and Reynolds are with Arthur, with Alice still unable to believe that he's finally with them, all grown up, with Arthur saying that he has changed a lot since they last saw him, and Reynolds replying that he is still their son no matter how much he changed. And even after finding out that he is a deviant mage capable of becoming one of the strongest in the future, it is still the second best news for him, and Alice agrees with him. But she gets a bit sad upon the prospect that he has gotten too grown up for her mother to give him a good night kiss. But Arthur blushes and sighs, and gives his mother a peck on her cheek, as he sleeps, saying both of them good night, and his mother also informs him that they would be going to shopping with his sister tomorrow to buy some clothes for him, and it would be a good chance for him to bond with her as well. And while leaving, Reynolds tells him to not hold anything against Vincent for being so excited earlier, since he did not meant anything bad. We go back to the dinner time, with Arthur telling Vincent that he has just reunited with his family, and he would like to spend more time with them before deciding if he wants to leave them again for this academy. With Vincent realizing his mistake and saying that he got a bit ahead of himself, and Arthur leaves the table, saying that he is more tired from the spa than he thought. And Lilia also stands up to go behind him. While walking down the hallway, he gets lost and wonders where to go. Suddenly Lilia comes behind him and tells him that he would end up at cellar if he heads that way, and that she knows a better place. They arrive at some place, with Lilia cheerfully greeting them. We see they are all the servants who recognize Arthur as the boy who burned the lawn that old lady worked hard to maintain, and Arthur apologizes for the trouble, but the guy tells him to not worry, since she is just teasing him. They all sit down, with Arthur noting that Lilia was pretty quiet before, but perhaps this is what she is usually like. Lilia drools for the food, asking for duck meat, and the old maid telling her to be careful since her mom, Madame Helsty, is getting suspicious of her as she is putting on weight. But Lilia tells her that she thought she already told them to not talk about such stuff, and they both smile. One of the servants informs Arthur that Lilia sneaks here often when she is stressed, with Arthur wondering what is she stressed about. The guy servant tells Arthur that it's her parents' wish for their daughter to awaken as a mage despite either of them being one themselves. Lilia wants it as well, but it still is a lot of pressure on a little girl. As Arthur watches Lilia eating her food happily. Back to the present, Arthur smiles, telling his parents to not worry, since he can tell that Helsty family are nice people and means well. And such, his parents finally leaves, telling him good night. Now next morning, we see Sylvie is waking up Arthur by licking him. He picks her up, noting that she is quite excited as well, and wonders on how Tess must be doing. Suddenly he smells Sylvie and takes her to bath along with himself. He puts her in bath and gets her all cleaned, and she just lies on bed as if something terrible has been done to her. Suddenly he gets a knock on his door, and it's Ellie, who came to wake Arthur up, on Alice's instructions. Arthur then asks her to escort them down, and she excitedly says that they would go for shopping after breakfast. And we see all three of them running excitedly in the hallway, with Ellie leading her big brother. Now fast forward in the city, Arthur is excited to explore the Xyrus city. He looks inside one of the shops and asks what sort of shop it is, and Helstia replies that those small orbs he sees are beast cores. And they are magical cores extracted from magic beasts, and their effects can vary vastly between different cores. It's a bit of gamble to spend hundreds of gold on, but if you are lucky it might even have a beast will. Hearing the amount shocks Arthur, and Helstia comments that it could even be thousands, making Arthur glad about his beast will. She also informs that their own auction house receives quite a bit of beast cores, and even infant mana beasts. He is welcome to take a closer look if he wants to, and Arthur thanks her for the offer. Lilia pushes Arthur, saying that there is a place where she would like to take him, as soon as she saw it. And it's a barber shop, with Arthur asking if it's necessary, and Alice replying that his hair looks atrocious. As the barber tells Alice that he would make her son really shine, just like the flawless gem he is, while Arthur screams internally. Fast forward, Arthur feels ridiculous, but her mom praises him to be perfect. And Ellie tells him that now he looks good enough to be her brother, and Alice saying that he finally looks like a civilized man. Walking on a bridge, Arthur notices some students. And Lilia tells him that they are Xyrus Academy students, with Arthur replying he was not really, and she adds that it's a status symbol to be able to wear that uniform, with Arthur commenting that they look jerks to him, and she replies, a lot of them are. And they are almost considered royalty around here. Alice and all come along and asks what were they two talking about, to which she replies, it was just about the school. Though Arthur has already run away, while Lilia notes that he is acting like a puppy. Alice says he is usually calm and collected, so it's refreshing to see him so excited like this. With Helstia noting that it's more comfortable for her too with him acting like a child, after what happened yesterday. Arthur enters a weapon shop and starts excitedly checking them all out. Suddenly two guys comes telling Arthur that this is not a place for kids, and tells him to leave while he is still being nice about it, and the other one mocks him, asking if he understands what a dangerous weapon is. As he is looking at the swords, the guy tells him that these are not toy swords that he has in his home. The guy tries to grab Arthur to lead him to a candy store, but Arthur smacks his hand away. And he tries to leave, saying that he is aware of what a sword is and apologizes for getting in the way. But the guy stops him, and calls him rude and a brat. Suddenly Alice comes along and shouts, but the guy does not budge, until he sees one more person with Alice. Which is Helstia, who warns him that he is someone from the Branch family, and if he would like her to revoke his and his family's participation in their auction. He gets scared and gets on his knees to apologize, saying that he did not knew that Arthur was with Helstia family. Later, Arthur thanks Helstia for getting him out of that situation, and Helstia replies that she was more worried on what will Arthur do to that guy instead. And suddenly a suspicious-looking guy in hood notices Sylvie. Now it gets evening and they arrive back home, with Vincent greeting them that they are finally here. And that he would like Arthur to meet someone, and it's some old lady, who tells Arthur that he must be the one whom Vincent told so much about. The old lady introduces herself, Cynthia Goodsky, and she is the director and founder of Xyrus Academy. Xyrus Academy, an institution hailed as the most exalted sanctuary for any would-be mage privileged enough to have both background and talent to enter. A breeding ground of acclaimed scholars, guild members, leaders, royal guards, and military powerhouses. Anyone who has made an impact on this world had ties with this academy. That was the kind of fame this school held, an insurmountable titan compared to the countless other academies scattered over this continent, and standing at the helm of it all is the academy's very own director Goodsky. Back to them, they both simply stand and stare at each other. So does everyone else around them with a bit of nervousness. She brings her hand forward and greets Arthur. While he wonders what would be a proper social convention in a situation such as this, does he have to kiss her hand or shake it? He greets her as well and goes for the shake, but Alice comes and pushes his head on the ground, apologizing for his behavior, and explains that he is ignorant of customs, since he just returned home, while Arthur is simply waiting for all this to pass on, as he have not eaten in hours. But Cynthia does not mind it, and instead calls herself as the rude one for intruding at such hour, but explains that she could not refuse Vincent's request due to his great contributions to their academy, and he replies he is simply helping the academy that one day he hopes his daughter to attend. Hearing which, Lilia gets bummed out. Cynthia says that it's not often she visits a potential student personally, but Vincent piqued her interest and insisted that there is a prodigy of highest caliber living in his home. As such, she asks Helstia if she could lead them to an open space for demonstration, though Arthur asks to eat first, only to get shut down quickly by Alice. As the Helstia family leads the Cynthia outside, Arthur and everyone else follows them, with him telling Sylvie that they won't be having dinner anytime soon, it seems. As Sylvie is walking behind them as well, Cynthia takes notice of her as well. She notes that it's a lovely mana beast and asks if it's his father's contracted one, and Arthur replies that it's his, born only few months ago. Cynthia calls it interesting as many nobles purchase mana beasts to form contract, but she has never seen something like Sylvie. Arthur lies that her mother was a scaled wolf with small wings, and was almost dead when he stumbled upon her protecting her egg, considering himself lucky. Now they all finally arrive at the backyard, with Cynthia saying, let's check if what Vincent said wasn't just an exaggeration and that he mentioned that Arthur is an augmenter, but refused to say anything else, telling her that it would be a surprise. She notes that Arthur does not look worried nor scared, wondering if it's his confidence or arrogance leaving him so collected. While only thing in Arthur's mind is what is going to be in his dinner. Vincent thinks that Cynthia will be shocked when she sees Arthur's fire and lightning magic, and he won't be able to burn his courtyard down like last time either. And Cynthia asks Arthur if he is not going to use a weapon, and he replies, seeing as she does not have any intention of using her wand, he will barehand it as well. Which she notices and smiles, saying, shall we begin? Now during Arthur's training time with Virion, the explosive power of fire and the adaptive riposte of water were the first chi arts from his world to manifest as actual elements in this world for him. The earth and wind style martial arts techniques of his previous life culminated after that as well. Suddenly he starts to emit a brownish aura and breaks the ground where he is standing. Control the mixture and internal and ambient mana as you shape it into the desired effect. As such, Arthur stomps on the ground with his one leg, destroying and making all the tiles fly up in the air. And seeing this ability and power, everyone is shocked. Though it's different from conjurers, these are the fundamental steps augmenters take to manifest an elemental attack, and Arthur had a bit of handicap with his past knowledge. As he kicks one of the flying stone right towards Cynthia, claiming to check on what the director of the most prestigious academy would do when he does this. Though Cynthia is a bit surprised, she smiles, and we see all the rocks are repelled by her wind magic. She then uses her magic to throw the rocks back at Arthur. But Arthur charges his magic, and dodges the rocks, and rushes towards her. He jumps in right through her wind magic, but is again blocked. She then starts to use her magic and pushes him away. As Arthur is sent back at high speed, he uses the wind to help himself orient on the stone in midair. And noting that even with all his training with Virion, using both wind and earth magic simultaneously compared to fire and water is still difficult. But he concentrates and again dashes towards her. But she is still very casual and uses a spell again with simple hand gestures. And that creates a huge tornado, as Arthur along with everyone else braces from due to high winds. And such Arthur is again pushed back by her, and she immediately starts to chant for her next spell. Arthur notes that she already has another spell ready in her hand. And this time she is able to create multiple tornadoes, and Arthur plans to conjure wind in the opposite direction to deflect the tornado. And once again he heads in and is able to deflect them using his own wind magic. She smiles and calls Arthur impressive, but calls him overconfident in facing his opponents head-on, but his display of magical and combat prowess is called exceptional by her. She prepares another spell, saying that this will be his last test, and tells Arthur to try and stay conscious. She then uses it on Arthur and he feels incredible pain in his ears, noting that it's sound magic and that she is a deviant. But regardless, he is able to stay conscious and Cynthia calls him marvelous. And says that he has passed all the tests with flying colors, and with his aptitude that he has shown in wind magic, she is tempted to teach him herself. But Reynolds is shocked and asks him, when did he learn to use earth and wind magic as well, hearing which confuses Cynthia as she asks, what does he mean by, as well? Vincent and everyone else is shocked as well, with him saying that Arthur used fire magic yesterday, and lightning magic as well, and that is why he brought Cynthia into courtyard, so he cannot burn his lawn again. Cynthia is surprised as well, that this little boy is capable of controlling at least 3 elements, and one to its deviant level, and Arthur says, it's 4, actually, and that he has an elemental affinity for all 4 elements. Cynthia is completely taken back by it, almost falling, with Reynolds asking if she is alright, and she replies, she is fine. Ellie asks Alice if her brother is strong and Cynthia replies, very strong, perhaps the strongest in the future. And after everything settled down, Arthur apologized to his family for keeping this from them, which prompts her mother to tell him to request him to not keep any secrets anymore, but his chest tightened, as he wished that he could promise her that. Now as everyone is relaxed, Cynthia looks at Arthur and grabs his shoulder, and erects some kind of barrier around them, keeping everyone else outside. As she tells Arthur to speak his mind as no one can hear them while the spell is active, and Arthur realizes that she saw right through him. He tells Cynthia that he showed his abilities to her because there are 2 things that she has which he wants, which are power and influence. And he wants her to keep his family safe until he becomes strong enough to do so himself, and not only he would attend her academy then, he would also consider her benefactor. She chuckles, saying that not even the king and queen of Sapin dare to make a one-sided deal with her like that. Does he really think if she would establish a relationship with a mere child? But Arthur replies that compared to them, he is more aware of the potential of this mere child and he trusts that she also does as well, although his end of this deal will have to wait until he actually attend her academy. Confused, she wonders what he means, and Arthur tells her that he made a promise to someone important that he would live his life to the fullest, and he thinks that attending the Xyrus Academy at a normal age will help him with that. She is a bit surprised by it, as it is over 3 years from now, and asks what does he plan to do till then. He thinks, and says that he has not told his family this yet, but he has decided to become an adventurer. Fast forward, and we hear someone shouting from behind the door, no, absolutely not, with Cynthia and Vincent noting that they have started. We see it's Alice, who is angry at him, for once again trying to go out there to get himself killed and strongly opposes his decision. While Ellie is trying to calm her mother down, and Sylvie is also scared. Reynolds also calms her saying, even though he also does not agree to him becoming an adventurer, they should at least hear him out, and Alice says, how could he say that, especially after everything they went through? She starts to get teary thinking about all that, and Reynolds tries to console her. But Arthur comes along and grabs his mother's hand gently, saying that he did not plan on leaving so soon either, and was looking forward to spending a few months at home with everyone. He knows that he just got here, but after he stayed in Elf Kingdom for over 3 years, he feels like he has missed so much of Sapin and the rest of Daikathan, and that he wants to experience that they both had back when they were adventurers. Reynolds tells him that he does know where he is coming from, as he was also itching to experience adventuring back when he was a teenager, but his mother is right to worry. And no matter how prepared and strong he think he is, the life of an adventurer is dangerous and unpredictable. But Arthur suddenly gets an idea and suggests that what if we had a supervisor or some sort of guard with him? Though his mother is still not convinced, Reynolds is on board with a plan and is already thinking on who can fulfill this role. As such, she grabs him by the collar and shakes him for even thinking of considering it, and that she would not let him go away for another 3 years. But Arthur tells Alice that he is not going away for 3 years, he was planning on coming back every few months or even more frequently. And with a scary glare, Alice asks, really? And Arthur nods his head in fear. Ellie comes to Arthur crying, asking if her big brother is leaving already. Arthur freaks out and gets on his knees to console her, that he is staying here, and that she would be seeing him a lot. Alice, though not giving her consent yet, asks Arthur on why does he want to become an adventurer now, would it not make sense for him to go to school instead of becoming an adventurer, all the while she is trying her best to not fall for their kid's cuteness. Arthur answers that even if he goes to school now, he would younger than other students, and he wants to fit in and make friends, but it would be hard with such an age difference. She proposes another alternative on how about trying to help his father, but at this point Reynolds stops her, assuring that their son would be just fine. And such Arthur thanks him, and that he also don't want to just train but fight and test out the skills he has learned in an open environment. Though Arthur did not lie to his mother, since Sylvia did tell him to enjoy his life. Now next morning, at the breakfast, they tell Reynold to eat slowly, but he replies that he is simply happy to eat without being in a rush today, though Helstia asks if he is not going to the auction house today to show some new recruits around. He replies that it's just an excuse to hold a welcome party, as Vincent excitedly notes that it's where the expensive meals are coming from. Seeing them, Lilia gets embarrassed, and Arthur asks them all on what they have planned for today. Helstia replies she and Alice have some errands to run around town to prepare for an upcoming event at the Helstia auction house, and Lilia and Ellie will be going with them, also him, if he wants to. Arthur replies that he would like to stay at home and thanks her for the offer, while Vincent asks if they have decided on what to do with Arthur. Alice replies that they have agreed but under certain conditions, and Helstia asks what are they. Reynold replies, firstly, he would wait until his birthday in 3 months, second, he would have a guard with him at all times during mission, and third, he would have to visit at least every 2 months. And besides that, he is smart enough to manage the rest, at least they think he is. Vincent replies, it's all fine, but asks if they have anyone in mind for being Arthur's guard. Though they all wonder if there is a guard capable of even guarding him. Though seeing Ellie acting like Sylvie and 2 horns, Reynold remembers that the twin horns will be coming back from a dungeon expedition soon, as he got a letter from the Adventurers Guild, saying that they will be back in 2 months, they can have them go with Arthur, and Alice, in surprise, says that's actually a good idea. Noting her reaction, Reynold asks her to not be surprised that he has a good idea. Hearing that, Arthur also gets excited, noting that he would be meeting all of them again soon. Now on the next day, we see Vincent is doing some of his office work. He suddenly gets a knock on his door, and it's Arthur, seeing whom, Vincent says that he just missed his father, as he is at the auction house right now. But Arthur replies that he actually came here to see him instead, and want to talk regarding certain matter, and asks to come in. Vincent is a bit confused by this at first, but agrees to talk. We now switch scenes to Alice and everyone else, who are out shopping, as Alice questions if the stuff she is browsing is really appropriate for the 10th anniversary event, and Tabitha replies that a lot of noble ladies actually adore the pieces she made. Alice is surprised hearing that, and asks Tabitha how did they even see those. She winks and replies that she stole a few from the house and used them to decorate the private viewing rooms at their auction house. Alice is quite surprised upon hearing that, as they were just ornaments she made in her free time. So, she finds it quite embarrassing. Meanwhile, Lilia notices Elia to be a bit sad. She asks her the reason for her pouting and if she is mad, and she replies it's because Arthur didn't came shopping with her. Lilia acts and replies that she is here with her, but perhaps now that her brother is here, she is not important to her. Ellie panics and replies that Lilia is Lilia and brother is brother. But Lilia continues her act, remarking how Ellie told her before that she is the best, but now that her brother is here, she is trying to throw her away, and Ellie starts to cry. But Tabitha intervenes and chops Lilia on the head since she is giving Ellie such a hard time. Lilia replies that she was just teasing her because all she has been thinking about these days is Arthur. Hearing this, Tabitha teases her, asking if it's really this case, since to her, it looks like Ellie isn't the only one thinking about Arthur, and that perhaps Lilia has gotten her first crush, which causes her to blush hard. Both Alice and Tabitha laughs at her, as Lilia denies anything like that, while calling Arthur a weirdo. But she then bites her lips and says that she remembers her mom saying that kids her age couldn't be mages, hearing which Tabitha stops. Which is why she was patiently waiting, but Arthur is already a mage and a lot stronger than a lot adults at that. She starts to get teary, saying that it's not fair, as she wants to be a mage as well and make them happy. Hearing this all, both Alice and Tabitha looks at each other with concerned expression. Alice then consoles Lilia that while it's hard not to, she shouldn't compare herself to Arthur, as she realizes that Lilia knows from the kids of her age at school that Arthur is the one that's different, but Lilia questions how did he got so strong, and if she or Mr. Lewin train him, and if they did, could they help her train as well. Alice denies that aside from the little sword training that Ray did with Arthur, they didn't do anything, which greatly surprises Tabitha. And she speaks up that while she get it that he is a very gifted child, but they are still missing pieces of story here, but immediately apologizes, saying that she didn't meant to pry, and Alice replies that it's nothing, and they are grateful that they all care so much, and that both she and Ray knows that Arthur is hiding something from them. So, Tabitha asks why don't they ask him everything, like how did he got so strong while he was away, and how even before the bandit attack, he was so skilled with sword, since if she is this curious to know, then both of them must be dying to know. Alice smiles and replies and agrees, but says that she trusts he has a good reason for not telling them. She figured to give him space until he is comfortable enough to tell them himself, which is what it means to be a parent. So seeing her talk like this, Tabitha decides to leave it at that as well. And with this, they continue on their shopping. But from the corner, we see someone seems to be watching over them, a hooded suspicious guy. He then arrives in some back alley and tells one of them to inform Lord Sebastian that the mana beast wasn't with them today, as a mage from Xyrus Academy has been placed to guard them, so they weren't able to trail them for long, but they assume the boy is most likely the master of the mana beast and will be attending the 10-year Helsty auction house anniversary event. One of them uses some kind of magic and replies that he will inform Lord Sebastian that it would be the best opportunity at the event. We switch scenes to Arthur as he is sitting in front of Vincent, who looks nervous as Arthur sips his tea. Vincent starts to question, what kind of situation is this, and suddenly feels something. Seeing Arthur, he wonders what sort of 8-year-old boy gives off such a strong presence that he will be more nervous than when he was with the King of Sapin. He then thanks Vincent for the tea, and Vincent notes that he is so different compared to when he is with his family, and wonder if this is his true self. And so, Vincent replies, of course, while nervously fixing his glasses. Moving on, Arthur speaks up the reason for his sudden intrusion, and it's because he would like Vincent to retrieve some items for him, and Vincent asks what those items are. Arthur replies, a protective cloak, preferably with a hood, a decent sword for his size and a mask capable of altering his voice. Vincent replies that the cloak shouldn't be a problem, but the mask is something that only an artificer that's a deviant sound mage can make, though he can try to get it. But in the midst of all this, Vincent thinks, why is he so eager to please this little kid, despite being already buried in work? And so, Arthur thanks him for it, and as for the compensation, he does not have money, but he has thought of a way to repay him for his help. Vincent tells him that it's fine, as his father has been a huge help since he started working for him, thanks to the training he is providing for all of his guards. Thefts and fights in his auction has been the lowest ever, but Arthur still wants to compensate. And tells Vincent that his plan is to help awaken her sister through the method that he discovered, and while he is helping her, he can help Lilia as well, hearing which leaves him confused. Arthur continues that he knows neither him nor his wife are mages, but he believes that he can help his daughter awaken as a mage and attend Xyrus Academy. Fast forward and we see Arthur training inside his room. He pants and sweats and notes that even after all this time, he is still only able to use his ability for few seconds. And realizing that it's not enough, he stands back up again. It now gets evening, and we see Arthur has kept up with his training for all this time, as he pants and sits on the floor all tired. He thinks that whether it's his past life or current life, he will need strength to protect his loved ones. And we see a flashback from his past, as he seems to be running in a dark alleyway. He seems to have books in his hands, which he drops while running. And as he arrives at his destination, we see police taking away someone's body, seeing which he is in quite shock. He screams and cries loudly as he tries to reach out to the dead person, but the police stops him. Tears starts rolling down his eyes, and we see a gun wrapped up in a polythene bag which seems related to the dead person. Back to the present, Arthur decides that this time, he will get strength, not to avenge, but to keep them safe. Suddenly, Sylvie speaks up and Arthur understands that everyone else is back from the errands. And so, he dresses back up and heads downstairs. As he is walking down, he encounters his mom in the middle, who questions, what is he talking about, making Lilia a mage, and even if it's a joke, it's quite insensitive of him. Tabitha also doesn't believe him and tells him that if it's a prank, then he went too far, and Arthur replies that he would never joke about something like this, as he proposed a deal with Vincent and he accepted. Vincent speaks up and agrees, saying that Arthur told him that he will show it once they all get back, and so they all head to the living room. There, all of them sit around and we see Arthur is sitting between Lilia and Ellie, and tells them to breathe the way he is telling them to. Arthur notes that mana is sensed best during slow and deep breaths that are in precise rhythmic patterns, and hopefully, his explanation will be easy for them to follow. He begins by saying that the first step is to breathe in a special way, and Ellie replies that she can breathe easily while Lilia is a bit confused, but Arthur tells Ellie that it's not just normal breathing, and that if she can do this, she will become strong like her big brother. Hearing which, Ellie gets excited and Arthur thinks that hopefully she will be able to understand his instructions. He then starts explaining the breathing process. They have to take a deep breath through their nose until they cannot breathe anymore, and then once they cannot breathe anymore, they have to open their mouth and breathe in just once more. Afterwards, they have let out their breaths in small bursts, about 15 times. And now they have to repeat the same process, but this time with their eyes closed and until they see pretty lights floating in the darkness. Tabitha and Vincent holds their breath in hopes of seeing Lilia succeed, and we see Ellie being successful in doing so, though they do go away quickly again. Arthur tells her that it's because she stopped breathing in that way, and Lilia says that she is still not able to see them, and asks if something is wrong with her, but Arthur replies that it's okay, as neither of her parents are mage, so he expected something like this. Alice asks Arthur to at least tell them on what is he trying to do, and Tabitha says that she knows him well and won't question his skills with magic, but teaching a child to awaken as a mage is still something unprecedented, as it's something that should happen naturally. Arthur replies that he is going to help them do what he did to awaken at the age of 3, and the only reason he thinks that he can do this is because his affinity with all the elements, and he has worked out everything out in his head, and will know for sure after trying. He then tells Lilia and Ellie that their body might feel hot, but they have to keep breathing like the way he told them to. And we see Arthur seems to be transferring his mana into them, and finally both Lilia and Ellie is able to see those lights. And so, Arthur tells them to gather the white specks together with their thoughts, and he especially instructs Ellie that those little lights are her friends, and they need to be together to be happy, so she should do that. And after they're done, we see all of them is quite tired, and Arthur states that this is all he can manage to do for today. Tabitha asks about the results and if her Lilia will be able to become a mage, and Arthur replies that it would take a few years, but if he does this with them for the first few months to get them on their feet, then Lilia shouldn't have a problem, but before he can finish, Tabitha hugs him tightly in happiness. She apologizes to Arthur for doubting him, and thanks him, saying that because of him, her baby will have so many opportunities that they weren't given because they weren't mages. And Lilia gets tears of happiness as well, along with her father. And after that, Arthur's life fell into a comfortable rhythm. He spent every morning training and then helping his sister and Lilia get closer to awakening. But even with his impatience to get stronger, he still made sure to spend time with everyone, knowing that he wouldn't have many more opportunities like this in the future. Now fast forward to 2 months later, we see someone walking around in the hall, being all nervous. Ray and Alice seems to walking towards the hall as well, as Alice says that Ray must be excited to see the twin horns today, as it has been a while. And he replies that he doesn't think he is the only one excited to see them. And we move to Arthur, who is fidgeting around the hall nervously waiting for them. Suddenly, Sylvie comes around and jumps on his shoulder, and he tells her that he doesn't think she is now small enough to keep riding on his shoulder. And now they get a loud knock on the door, and Arthur notes that they are finally here and opens the door. But before he can even greet them, Angela tightly hugs Arthur while crying tears of joy, saying that he had it so hard for such a young boy, while Arthur tries to tell her that he cannot breathe. And we see the lucky guy buried in her breasts. Someone comes along and pulls her away from him, and she lets him go, saying that she got a little emotional. And the person is Durden, and Arthur comments that he has grown even bigger upon seeing him, as we see him also crying. And Durden, upon remembering everything that happened that day, starts to cry even more and tells Arthur that he can say the same thing for him. We then see Adam standing by the door, telling both Angela and Durden that he thought they had the plan to put on a happy face for the kid, yet what is up with the tears? And if no one is going comment about the black mana beast behind, but before he completes his sentence, Helen comes along and chokes him with her bow while saying to ignore this fool. She then blushes slightly while complimenting Arthur, saying that she is glad to see him all grown up and even more handsome. Meanwhile, Adam asks if he is the bad guy for crying, saying that it's not his fault that he is mature enough to keep it together. And lastly, Jasmine comes running at Arthur and hugs him tightly. Arthur is a bit taken back by this, and Jasmine starts to repeatedly apologize and starts crying rivers. And in the end, Adam starts crying as well, though he does try to look away and hide his tears. His parents arrive as well, who are crying as well seeing all this happen, noting that they missed their timing. Fast forward and we see them getting ready for the auction, as Vincent asks Ray if he is sure that he doesn't need conjurers inside. And he replies that they have Angela and another wind conjurer alternating detection barriers around the auction house and Durden manning the main entrances. Any more than that and people would suspect them preparing for a war. Vincent replies that he is quite glad that his old party agreed to help out with the security, and he replies that with them here, he was able to position some of the other guards outside around the next block. They plan to engage any threats outside, so the guests will be safe and the auction house won't be destroyed either. Vincent nervously replies that while he knows that he is joking, but after his experiences with mages recently, he is going to hold him to that promise, but he hopes that it doesn't come to that. He also continues to tell him that Arthur mentioned that he wanted a sword before he registers as an adventurer, which surprises Ray a bit, and Vincent continues that considering his in-fighting style with his gauntlets, he didn't expected him to teach Arthur sword fighting. But Ray replies that the only thing he did for him was get him a wooden starter sword. Aside from that, since he was 4, he learned on his own, hearing which Vincent is quite surprised, though he questions, why is he even surprised at this point? Ray continues that, while Arthur says that he is self-taught, but the few times they have sparred, there are times when Arthur emits this type of pressure, hearing which confuses Vincent. Ray continues that it's like, sort of calculated confidence that he has fought battles for decades. Vincent confusingly replies that Arthur haven't lived for a decade, and thinks that Ray is giving him too much credit. Ray also thinks that it might be the case, but when they spar, there are times when he suddenly trips or messes up, as if he is not used to his own body, and Vincent replies that he thinks he knows the reason, and Ray asks in a bit surprised tone if he really does. Vincent answers that it is early puberty, and Ray doesn't agree and simply tells Vincent to go downstairs as everyone is probably waiting for them. As they come down, Tabitha tells them that they took long enough, and questions why were they last to get ready despite being grown men. And upon seeing them, Vincent comments that they all are looking great. He does feel sorry that he made everyone wear just black and white, since they are the hosts for this event. They didn't want it to stand out over the guests, though he also states that they didn't need it to make Ray's family code same as well. But Alice tells him that it's no problem, as she would be uncomfortable wearing bright colors either way. Meanwhile, Arthur thinks that dressing up like this makes him realize that no matter what he wears right now, he is still just some cute kid, and so he hopes that this growth spurt comes soon. And now, Vincent claps his hand and tells everyone to get going, as the carriages are waiting. On the way, he puts his hand on Arthur's shoulder and tells him that he heard his daughter is progressing well. Arthur replies that if she continues like this, then she should be able to awaken in time to attend Xyrus at a normal age. And hearing which, Vincent thanks Arthur again. But Arthur tells him that he is just holding his end of the deal, and he expects to see some great stuff at the auction house, and Vincent assures him of this. And finally, we see all of them heading to the auction. We now see Arthur and Twin Horns are sitting together in one carriage, while Vincent's family and Arthur's family is sitting in another. And after he explained what happened to him, Adam comments that he cannot believe he went through all that after falling down that cliff. And Helen says, despite all that, he was at least able to find a bond. It's something that apparently even seasoned adventurers and nobles are rarely able to have. Arthur smiles and replies that it's the reason that she is special to him. Now the carriage stops, and Angela looks outside and comments that they have arrived. And we see 2 guards walk up to their carriage and welcomes them. Seeing the Helsty auction house, Arthur is quite impressed by its sheer size and appearance. The 10th anniversary of the Helsty auction house, an event that nobles and adventurers alike have been excited for. It's not only a celebration, but also a chance to see and even buy priceless artifacts that have been kept locked away and guarded for this particular event. Inside the auction house, we see many artifacts being moved, in which Arthur sees many beast cores and is quite surprised, and some kind of statue as well, seeing which, he wonders, what the hell is even that? He notes that the exterior of this building was amazing, but the inside holds up just as well too. Vincent gives a small motivational line to get their heads together and make sure no mistakes are made. Ray starts giving out orders to guards to make sure the side corridors are checked every half hour before Ray starts giving out orders to guards. Seeing his father like this, Arthur is quite happy, since this is a big change from how he usually is, and Helen replies that his father was a leader, after all. And that while she has grown up since then, she believes that she still cannot match up to him. She then starts to leave, saying that she will be joining his father now, so she will catch up to him later, and Arthur's mom calls him as well, saying that they should go inside, as Vincent and Ray will be joining them a little later. As they enter inside, we see the place is huge and Arthur comments that it's amazing. And seeing the person on stage, he assumes that it must be the auctioneer hosting the event. We then get a look on the VIP sitting areas and Arthur thinks that even though he have been a king and has lived amongst the royal family of Manhwa Kingdom, he still finds this place impressive. Tabitha asks Arthur, what does he think of their Helsty auction house, and Arthur replies that she is seriously downplaying the word house here. Alice chuckles and Tabitha replies that she is glad he liked it, while Lilia tells Arthur that he will be surprised when he sees the private viewing room at the top. And so, we see them walking towards the viewing room up top. Arriving there, the guard welcomes them, and Arthur thinks that after seeing how grand this place is, he is quite excited to see what sort of items will they be going to auction today. Tabitha tells them to make themselves comfortable, as they're expecting some very special guests later on. We see Lilia and Ellie watching from the window, seeing many guests arrive, which Ellie finds quite amazing. Tabitha asks the kid, what are they up to, and Lilia replies that Ellie is just trying to count the people coming in, which Tabitha finds cute. Lilia then suggests Ellie that instead of counting, she should play the hand-clapping game with her. And we see both Lilia and Ellie playing together, while Alice and Tabitha seems to be gossiping. Seeing which, Arthur smiles from the side, thinking that they all are having fun. The guard then arrives, informing Tabitha that the VIP guests have arrived and will be here soon, and we see all of them getting ready to greet them. Vincent stands at the gate, and we see two guards standing there as well. The first person to enter seems to be a hooded mage. And after that, Vincent presents the VIP guests, His Majesty, Blaine Glader, Her Majesty, Priscilla Glader, Prince Curtis Glader, and Princess Kathleen Glader. Everyone kneels as Arthur thinks that he felt it back then as well, same as Eleanor, that he was in the presence of royalty. The king tells Vincent that he didn't thought they would share this space with guests, and he apologizes for being presumptuous and replies that he remembered him telling that he wanted to meet his family, so he thought that it would be a good time. He first introduces his wife and daughter, who he says that the king might already remember. And then Alice, who he introduces as his close friend's wife, and their children, Arthur and Eleanor. The king replies that friends of Vincent are friends of his, so they should stand up, since they are here to congratulate the Helsty family on their 10th anniversary of this place and enjoy the event. The queen also chimes in, saying that there is no need to remain formal, as she is pleased that they would at least have some company besides their guards. Sylvie also gets up, and the queen, seeing her, comments that she is a really cute mana beast, but more intelligent, and Arthur replies that she just hatched several months ago, and her name is Sylvie. And he asks Sylvie to greet them, which she does, and the king asks if this beast is his mana bond, and Arthur replies that she is. He calls Arthur really fortunate, as even infant beasts are not easy to tame, yet Sylvie seems quite obedient to him, and he replies that they are able to communicate mentally, so it's more like a mutual agreement rather than obedience. Hearing which, the court mage seems surprised, and asks Arthur that if he means he is under equal contract under this mana beast, and seeing his reaction, Arthur wonders if he said something unusual, and replies that he suppose, and that Sylvie was the one who initiated the contract. Even the prince and princess seems curious about this, and the court mage tries to take a closer look at Arthur's bond. But the king intervenes and asks him to stop, saying that it's not the time nor place to study someone's pet, and asks if he needs to remind him his duty, and Sebastian immediately kneels and apologizes to the king. Seeing the awkward moment, Tabitha asks everyone to sit down, as the event will be starting soon. And as Arthur looks back at Sebastian, he seems to be planning something. The auctioneer then begins the auction, saying that it's an honor for him to be here tonight, and that he presumes all of the Estamede guests to be here today for one reason only, which is for the chance to obtain one of the rare and valuable items in this auction. Hearing this, everyone starts to clap and cheer loudly. But before they begin, he tells everyone in the audience to turn their faces to the south, and to please join him in welcoming a few exceedingly important figures who have blessed them with their presence, the very king and queen of Sapin. And so, everyone starts to bow and pay their respect to the royal family. And up next, the last thing, the person who made this whole event possible. And Vincent stands up, as the auctioneer tells everyone to give him a big round of applause. Seeing this all, Arthur is reminded of his time as the king in his past life, though he quickly nods his head sideways, thinking that he is not a king anymore. And not just that, he hasn't even gone through puberty yet, which makes him sigh. He then stands up on the side, and drinks while no one is looking. And while standing, he notices a staff on the queen, and realizes that she is a conjurer. And the fact that he couldn't sense her mana means she is either carrying an artifact to hide it, or perhaps she is high level enough that he cannot sense it, as the queen takes notice of Arthur glancing in her direction and smiles. He gets one more thought from all this. He finds it interesting that he doesn't feel any attraction towards the queen. Or any older woman for that matter, even though they are in the same age range when he died. He assumes that it might be due to them being their mother's age. But it's also not like that he finds any younger girls attractive either. But regardless, he lets go of these thoughts, since he don't plan on dating anytime soon, and he plans to think about it when he gets older. Suddenly, Vincent arrives and calls Arthur, telling him that a sword is up for auction right now, so he should tell him if he wants it, as he will put a bid on it then. And he should also not worry about the price as well, since it's one of the perks of being the owner of this place. The auctioneer then brings out the sword. It's a short sword forged by a mastersmith who is also a fire artificer. Imbued above the handle is the core of a mighty thunder hawk. Reinforcing this sword with just a bit of mana will produce currents of electricity around the edge of the blade, which enhances its cutting power and even exudes a paralyzing effect. And the bidding starts with 50 gold, and we see many people eagerly putting their bids on it. Meanwhile, Arthur notes that a modest house in Xyrus will fetch at least a single gold coin, but in average family in his hometown of Ashba, they could live just fine on a handful of copper coins a day. Just the opening bid of this sword could provide a modest living for a family for over 250 years. Vincent asks Arthur if it's to his liking, and while it's a little big, but a sword with elemental ability is hard to come by, and Arthur replies that while it does sound like a powerful weapon, it's not something that he needs, as he prefers something less unique. Vincent replies that he thought so, since why play with a spark when he can wield lightning himself? But regardless, he also tells Arthur that it's just the beginning, as even if he doesn't like anything, he managed to find all of the other items that he wanted. Arthur is impressed hearing that, and asks, even a voice-altering mask. Vincent asks him, who does he think he is, as apparently, even the coat he got for him is made from a nightmare fox. It has the ability to obscure his presence from unsuspecting eyes. Since it seemed like something Arthur would want, he got it, and Arthur laughs and replies that it's more than he hoped for. But he does tell Arthur to stay safe, since he would have to deal with his family if something happens to him. Fast forward a bit, and Arthur realizes that Vincent was right. The sword was just the beginning. There were more weapons, and even several beast cores, ranging from C-class all the way to A-class. The king himself bid on a few of them, and won an A-class beast core, but it wouldn't be until its recipient actually absorbed the core that they would learn whether or not the core contained a beast will. He then stretches himself, wondering when will it be break time, and notices Sylvie is not with him. He asks Lilia and Ellie if they know where she is, and they reply that she was here a moment ago, so Arthur tries to look around to find her. He suddenly hears her voice, and upon looking, we see Sebastian has cornered her. He tries to pick Sylvie up. Meanwhile, Sylvie seems quite scared of him. But Arthur comes along, and gets pissed, but thinks to control himself, since Sebastian is a royal family's court mage, and takes Sylvie with him. Sebastian stands up, saying that a countryside commoner like him has no place frolicking around with such a special beast. Hearing which, Arthur asks, what does he mean, and Sebastian grins, and replies that he means that Sylvie will be hers. Hearing which, Arthur gets pissed as he clenches his fist tightly, and glances back at Sebastian with a murderous aura, asking him to say that again. We now go back to some moments ago. Vincent thinks that it's a pity that Arthur wasn't able to find anything that he liked, and from what he understands, he just wanted a quality sword, nothing fancy or innately powerful. And if that is the case, then he is sure that he will be able to find something in their storage, and just then, someone taps on his shoulder. We see it's the king, and seeing him, Vincent says that he hopes he is having an enjoyable evening, and he replies that he is not sure how he managed to secure an A-class beast core from a silver coat bear, but he is really pleased with his purchase. Though, he does hope that the beast will is still intact in it. Hearing this, Vincent replies that he is glad this event was worth the trouble, and before they continue talking, they suddenly feel something. Vincent falls on his knees feeling it, as he feels the heavy, almost palpable bloodlust, which is not even directed at him, and yet. The king worriedly calls out Vincent's name, and the guard notices this bloodlust as well, and we see Vincent being unable to even breathe, as he thinks, what is happening? Everyone gets on guard, as the king's guard orders the king to stay back and the princess orders them to protect the children. The king also draws his sword, shouting, who dare to try and attack the royal family? And we see everyone is completely taken back by the bloodlust. Meanwhile, Arthur realizes that he lost control of himself. Ellie also starts crying due to it, and Vincent wonders what just happened. And soon enough, others come running as well, asking if everything is okay. The guard replies that the room has been searched, so they are fine for now, but they should check the surrounding area. And so Ray orders them to check upstairs, and Arthur mentally apologizes to his dad for causing this uproar. We then see everyone nervously waiting, and Arthur asks Sylvie if she is all right. One of the guard then comes around and informs to the king that an intruder has been apprehended by Ray just now, hearing which, the king replies, "All is well then." Arthur is surprised at first, but thanks the intruder for his sacrifice. The royal guard speaks up and asks Sebastian how can a royal guard fall on his ass like this over a little intimidation from an intruder, and he is going to die early at this rate, but Sebastian makes an excuse that he slipped. He glances over at Arthur once again, and when Arthur looks back, he quickly turns away his face in frustration. Now the auction continues, as they get the final item for tonight's event, and apparently it's the best item which was saved for the last. And as he removes the cloth, we see it's an infant world lion. Everyone is quite excited upon seeing it, and the auctioneer explains it as well, that an adult world lion has the capability of becoming a powerful B-class mana beast, and if taken care well, this infant lion could even become an A-class beast. Sebastian notes that Arthur isn't even paying any attention to the other mana beast. The auctioneer continues that taking care of and treasuring this fine beast will allow its master to become a legendary world-class tamer, and the big starts at 500 gold. And everyone quickly starts bidding insane amounts of gold to acquire him. But the king stands up, taking full advantage of his insane wealth, and bids 1,000 gold. Everyone immediately quiets down, and Vincent says that no one wants to bet against him and congratulates him. He asks for the king's plan for the new royal pet, and if he will be taming it himself, and he replies, while it's tempting for him to have a bond, he is thinking to give it to Curtis. Though, it depends on how he does, and Curtis speaks up, saying that he will do his best, and Queen says, if it means that she won't have to hear him avoiding his lessons from the tutor, and Curtis gets scared hearing that, as his mother told him that she wouldn't tell that to his father. Seeing them, Arthur smiles and thinks that they almost look like a normal family. Vincent tells the king that the auction is about to end, and if he would like to gather the items and send them over to him, and he replies that he doesn't have the patience for that, and he would like to go down with him instead. And so, Vincent asks the king to follow him. But suddenly, Sebastian holds the king and whispers something in his ear. And the king replies, "It's enough," and he understands, while Sebastian glances back at Arthur while smirking, and Arthur gets a bad feeling about this. Now everyone arrives downstairs, and Vincent tells the king that an attendant will be here with his items and calls out to Arthur. He shows them his items as well, except for the sword. As for that, he tells Arthur that it would be better for him to take a look around here and see if he can find anything he likes. His mom comes up and tells Arthur that she will hold on to his items till he finds his sword, and Arthur thanks her for that. Hearing this conversation, King seems impressed and asks Arthur if he is planning to take sword lessons, as Curtis has started learning as well, and suggests that they can perhaps arrange a friendly spar between them one day, but Sebastian speaks up that Prince Curtis will become infected with bad habits if he began sparring with commoners. Arthur replies to the king that while he is honored, swords are merely his hobby, so he could never hope to reach his son's level. As Ray is walking by the room, he sees Vincent and halts, and Vincent asks him to hurry over here, as the king wants to meet him. Ray kneels and apologizes for his intrusion, and the king tells him to be at ease. He also heard that he was the one who caught the intruder earlier, and compliments him by saying that Vincent has gotten himself quite the capable hand. He replies that he is not worthy enough for such praise, as he is merely doing his duties. He then asks if Arthur is his son, and he replies he is, and asks if there is some matter. The king explains that Sebastian has been a royal guard for many years, and helped their family uncountable number of times, and for the exemplary services he provided to him and therefore to the country, he feeds the need to reward him at times. And right now, he has taken quite a liking to Arthur's bond, hearing which, Arthur's eyes go blank. And the king tells Ray that giving a guard of the royal family his Arthur's bond will be a service to the kingdom. Hearing this all, Ray looks towards Arthur and sees anger in his eyes and expression. And as he tries to speak up, the king interrupts, saying that he is more than happy to compensate him for the bond, and hiring a mage to sever the contract between his son and Mana Beast will be also done on their expense. But Ray apologizes to the king, saying that neither him nor his wife have anything to do with the bond, as Arthur acquired it himself, so he cannot speak on his behalf regarding this matter. And we see Alice looking quite concerned with all this going, and the king turns towards Arthur. As the king is looking down on Arthur, Arthur doesn't shy away and gazes at him with ferocity. Sebastian tries to intervene, seeing Arthur's eyes. asking if his parents not teach him to lower his gaze when talking to a superior, but the king stops him. The king asks Arthur, saying that he should have heard his conversation with his father, as he won't repeat himself, and asks if he would like to take a sword from his royal armory, a sword befitting any aspiring young knight. But Arthur tries to calm himself down, since he is still speaking in front of King of Sapin, and takes a breather. He thanks the king for his glorious offer, and refuses, citing that even the most magnificent sword could never replace Sylvie. Once again Sebastian gets angry, but the king again stops him. The king then offers a trade instead, with the world lion cub that he purchased. Curtis tries to argue that the mana beast was his, but the king ignores and goes on to say that while Sylvie is special, reptilian beasts rarely grow to be as strong as a true predator mana beasts. Arthur once again apologizes to the king, this time for making himself not clear, and once again repeats that he does not wish to trade or sell his bond. The king seemingly starts to get angry as well, saying that he has already asked him for a favor twice, and his patience runs thin, so he will ask him kindly one last time, will he give him his bond or not? Arthur is quite pissed, but seems to have gave up, and asks the king to allow him to ask him one question as well, and Sebastian smirks. And so, he asks the king, how much would he be willing to sell his children for? And says that while he has asked him thrice already, and he has rejected him all 3 times, yet to him it seems that his pride won't allow him to accept his refusal, and he doesn't seem to be aware of the gravity of what he is asking him, so he hopes that his question will make it clear. He once again asks the king, how much money would he require in exchange for his son and daughter? Hearing this, everyone is left quite shocked. Sebastian looks towards the royal guard, who immediately rushes off to attack Arthur. He calls Arthur an insolent peasant for insulting King and his family. Arthur notes that he is concentrating his mana into his sword, and assumes that he perhaps intends to cut him in half. But Arthur keeps his mana flow calm and even, and anticipates the enemy's movement and take control of the path of his strike, and then disrupt his balance and explode using both his power and the enemy's momentum against him. Seeing the guard getting knocked out like this, Sebastian calls him a fool for not being able to kill a single child. But he then takes out his staff and plans to kill Arthur, thinking that even if he is punished, he will take this matters into his own hand, as what king doesn't realize that a bond capable of forming an equal contract at such young age means it would eventually grow beyond a class, so he has to have it. And right as he is about to attack Arthur, something happens. Everyone and everything seems to be frozen in time. Sebastian is surprised and confused by this as his spell suddenly stops, and Arthur starts to get up, telling him that it's no use, as spells that need ambient mana to fuel won't work here. And we see Arthur's eye glowing blue with orange glowing marks below it. Sebastian shouts at him to stay back, asking Arthur if he really thinks that he is a match for a conjurer of the royal family. And Arthur instantly appears beside him, while replying that in this state, he is, as Sebastian turns around in shock. But before he can react, Arthur breaks his leg completely, as he screams in pain while holding it. He screams for help, while questioning why is everyone just standing there, and if no one can hear him, Arthur puts his hand on his shoulder, while saying that no one can hear him, so it would be best to listen while he is still able to. Sebastian gets really terrified and tells Arthur that he cannot do this, as he is the personal conjurer of the king himself, but Arthur gets up and says, exactly. Arthur then glances back, with his burning gaze, with his commanding tone, he tells Sebastian to know his place. We go back to few moments ago, when Arthur punched the guard, and the king is left shocked seeing it, as he wonders, how did he do something like that, and wonders, if his guard tripped or something. Suddenly, the king hears a loud thud as Arthur instantly disappears from his sight, and he wonders, where did he went, and upon looking finds him away from the original location, which confuses him. Seeing Sebastian's gruesome leg injury, Lilia gets terrified and tightly hugs Ellie. And so does everyone else around them as well. Sebastian is completely broken, as his face is messed up, while he asks someone to help him. Even the king is terrified, and the queen quickly hides her child and tells the guards to check up on Sebastian's vital and asks Grodwill to find an emitter now. As Sebastian is being taken away, and the king and his family looks upon the other guard as well. And as for Arthur, his parents starts checking up on him, and Alice looks really worried. Ray picks him up in his arms and Alice starts using her healing spell on him. But it doesn't work, and she starts to cry, and seeing which, so does Vincent and his family. Fast forward, and we see Arthur waking up. His head starts to ache, as he wonders, how did he got back to his room? Last thing he remembers is using his static void ability and realizes that he overdid it. But thanks to Sylvia, he was able to use static void once he had unlocked the acquire phase of her dragon will, with which he was able to temporarily separate himself from the flow of time. And he finds it quite the game-changing ability, which is only available to him because he is a legacy tamer. But it came at a cost. Despite his years of training, he is only able to use this ability for a few seconds without feeling backlash. And this time, he realizes that he went over his limit, and it was his first time using static void on another person as well. He lays down on his bed again, and considers himself lucky that things only ended with him falling unconscious. We see someone standing outside with Sylvie, who is eager to see Arthur. And it's Alice, who is surprised to see Arthur awake. She hugs him and cries out of happiness, saying that the doctor said he most likely fell unconscious from the shock and would wake up soon. But the doctor used the word soon, which was rather off-putting for her, and it's been almost 8 hours since then. Arthur also gets sad, thinking that he made her worry again, and suddenly his head aches again. Seeing which, Alice asks if something is wrong, since he seemed in pain, and Arthur replies that it's nothing, and asks what happened after he passed out. Alice replies that no one was in their right state of mind, especially the kids, so the king and his family excused themselves first, and his father is downstairs in the living room with the king's representative discussing what happened. So, Arthur tells her that he will go see how it's going downstairs, while Alice plans to check up on Ellie and sleep with her tonight just in case, but not without asking Arthur once again if he is really fine. Arthur smiles and once again tells her that he is fine, so she should get some rest, and asks Sylvie to stay with his mom tonight. As Arthur is heading downstairs, he overhears Ray saying that this matter is not something that can be compensated with money since his son was almost killed. And as Arthur walks into the room, Ray seems happy to see him awake. Arthur replies that he is good as new and asks him on the situation, and Ray replies that the king representative just tossed a few gold coins as a token of apology from him for what he considers a small incident. Seeing Arthur, the representative stands up and introduces himself as Jasper Cogwright, and tells him that he is here on behalf of His Majesty to extend his utmost condolences for what happened today. Arthur decides to play the modest victim and thanks him for coming all the way to his home. Jasper comments on how well-mannered he is, and that he has told his father most of what happened, but he also wanted to inform them too that both guards who attacked him have been relieved of their positions. Ray speaks up that for almost killing his son, the king gives them a slap on the wrist and waves them goodbye, to which Jasper replies that he should also note that it was his son who spoke out of turn in front of the Majesty. But Arthur speaks up, telling his father that it's all right since Jasper isn't wrong, as he was out of line as well, and since he is not hurt, they should end this matter. From that, Arthur also nervously asks Jasper what happened to the conjurer, the one whose knee got broken. Jasper replies that he has been stripped of his position, and the injury he sustained is being currently treated. He then asks if they were able to assess on what exactly happened to his leg. And Jasper replies that upon waking up, he was adamant, saying that Arthur was the one who inflicted that injury. Ray freaks out and asks how does that even make sense, and Jasper replies to let him finish, and continues that while what he said, and judging by the lingering mana on his staff, they believe that the mana released from the first knight who acted out ricocheted and interfered with Sebastian's spell. Hearing which, Arthur seems a bit relieved, and wonders if this whole thing is just going to end like that. And when Jasper leaves, Ray throws over the pouch of gold to Arthur, saying that since he was the one who almost died he should have it, and he is going to need money when he start off as an adventurer as well, so for now, he should go and get some rest, and Arthur thanks him for this. And while leaving, Arthur glances back and puts out his fist towards him while smiling. He puts down his gold and thinks that thankfully, the situation with Sebastian managed to blow over without any problem. But it did made him conscious of the fact that in this world, he is still only a kid, but it would be different when he is an adventurer. And with this mask, he believes that he can let loose a little.